So welcome friends, what if Naruto was Origin of Rokushiki, Naruto x Fu movie. Rokushiki, the legendary martial arts style used by the Marines of the World Government and the assassins of the Cypher Pole 9, is renowned for its near superhuman feats of strength and speed. Tekai, Soru, Rankyaku, Shigen, Kami-e, and Geppo. These legendary skills are the symbols of the elite in the Marine Corps, and one must have mastery of at least 4 of these to even become a member of the CP9. While these skills are well known for the power, very few know of their origins and even less know of the original purpose for those techniques. The Rokushiki wasn't created to defend absolute justice, to assassination the guilty, or even to protect the innocent. In fact, most of the moves were made by accident. All the man, whom would come to created 6 of the deadliest techniques known to man, wanted to do was survive his birthday. Years before the creation of the world government, there was a land that was separated into dozens of nations. However, there were only 5 important nations. These were the land of fire, the land of water, the land of earth, the land of lighting, and the land of wind. These nations were so powerful and important due to their shinobi villages. The strongest of these villages was Konoha no Sato, village hidden in the leaves located in the land of fire. This village was renowned for its unnatural large amount of genius ninja. Ninja like Hashirama and Tobirama Senju, Hiruzen Sarutobi, and the legendary Sannin have made Konoha the most powerful village in the world. It is said that this isn't the only quirk of the hidden village, it also known as the most prosperous, most wealthy and most peaceful of all villages. However, one day, disaster struck this peaceful village. A demon known as the Kyubi no Kitsune, whose tails were said to flatten mountains and cause tsunamis, had attacked the village and caused horrific damage. Hundreds of shinobi and kunoichi were killed by the demon before the 4th Hokage combated the beast. However, even Konoha's yellow flash was unable to kill the Kyubi. Having no other choice, the 4th Hokage sacrificed his own life to seal the demon inside a child, who was conveniently born that day. His final wish was for the villager to view the child a hero and to pity the boy for his burden. Sadly, the attack had taken all the pity out of the villagers. After that attack, the boy was treated like an outcast and only a few of the villagers obeyed the 4th's wish. 6 years after the attack, October 10th, get back here. Demon. Monster. You'll pay for what you did, for the village of Konoha. This was a day of mourning. It was the 6th anniversary of the Kyubi attack and the village wanted to remember those who gave their lives for the good of the village. Men and women shed tears and marked the graves of those brave men and spent the majority of the day trying to forget their losses. However, when the booze flowed, the intelligence dropped, and men become fearless. Now, the night was a time of screams and panting. Naruto Uzumaki was sprinting down the streets of Konoha desperately trying to get away from the ever-growing mob behind him. His sky-blue eyes were red from the tears, his white t-shirt with a red spiral was ripped, torn, and dirty. His face was covered in dirt but one could still see 3 whisker marks on each of his cheeks. His cries of forgiveness and apologizes were drowned out by the shouts for blood. This continued for a few minutes before the spiky-haired blonde took a wrong turn and ended up at Dead-End Alley. "Hey, looks like we finally got you trapped, you pathetic demon," one man in the crowd grinned. "Please sir, ID didn't do anything, I swear," the boy cried, slowly backing up towards the wall in the back. "Haven't done anything?" one member of the mob screeched, her voice laced with alcohol. "You took my husband away from me? You took my parents away, you bastard," said another voice from a bit farther away. "You stole everything we held dear, demon, now you are going to pay." The crowd attacked using everything they could get their hands on, from bottles to bars of wood to even their own fists. Throughout the beating, Naruto did what he normally did when a beating. He stayed absolutely still and concentrated on tightening his body. Naruto wasn't sure when he learned how to do this. All he could remember is that when he was 3. Something in the back of his mind told him to stay absolutely still and to focus on his body. Back then, he wasn't very good at it and he was still injured pretty bad, but as the years went by he's gotten very good at this, to the point where barely felt anything when the villagers attacked him. However, if the occasional shinobi were to attack him, they would always manage to break through his defense somehow. Was he not trying so hard to defend himself from the villagers' attack? Naruto would have been a bit proud of his ability to endure the villagers' latest assault. "This is amazing, I'm getting better at this, I don't feel a thing," he thought. If he was lucky, the crowd would eventually get tired and go away, or maybe the ninja with the mask would save him. However, this feeling of hope immediately died when he saw one man make his way through the mob. "Move aside, I'll take care of this demon brat," the man bragged. He was an average-sized man with short black hair. He wore the standard Konoha Chunin attire. The crowd gave way to allow the man through. He stopped and took one look at the kid on the ground, cowered in a ball. A small twinge of guilt racked his mind before the sight of seeing his beloved Sayuri being stomped by one of the Cubus' massive tails replaced it with uncontrollable hatred and anger. "It's time to pay, you monster." He ran as much charka as he could through his hands and began to beat the boy. Naruto could only grit his teeth. While the Chunin's attack had hurt, he knew if his concentration lapsed for even a moment the pain would be 1,000 times worse, so he forced himself to concentrate even harder on trying to tighten up even more. The Chunin noticed this and was amazed that Naruto's skin, which was tough to punch even with chakra-infused punches, had suddenly gotten even stronger. What the hell? He thought as he pulled his fist back in pain. That felt like I was trying to punch through a brick house. He glared at the boy and pulled out a kunai from his holster. I've had enough playing around with you, fox. He turned to the crowd and said, 4 of you hold the brat's arms and legs so I can get a good shot. At this point, many in the crowd were beginning to have second thoughts. Not that they were concerned with the demon brat, but they knew the longer it won't be long before the Hokage or one of the Anbu would appear and arrest them. A few were also beginning to feel empty, seeing as though they haven't gained anything by beating the boy and had already turned away. However, there were a few who were either so full of hatred to even recognize the danger they were in or perhaps too drunk to even care. 4 of these people grabbed one of Naruto's limbs and held them down so he could move. Naruto was scared out of his mind as he saw the Chunin walk up to him, with an evil grin plastered on his face and eyes that radiated hatred, like an executioner. He raised the kunai above the blonde's heart and whispered, "Goodbye, demon," and plunged. Time seemed to slow down for Naruto. He couldn't dodge thanks to those damned idiots holding his arms and legs, and wasn't sure if he could even take the kunai in the chest. "No, please, I don't want to die," he screamed in his mind. Being unable to speak due to fright, he closed his eyes and waited for the kunai that was coming closer and closer to his heart. Line break In Naruto's mindscape, a presence in the back of the boy's mind let out grumble of annoyance. How pathetic, my existence is attached to a brat that can't even remember what street to turn to get to his apartment. I can't pump any of my yokai into the kid yet, otherwise he'll die or be left in no condition to defend it himself, and more importantly me. He already begun to learn my little trick for deflecting physical attacks. Perhaps if I give him just a little nudge in the right direction, he'll be able to survive tonight. Line break In the real world, Naruto was about to be stabbed when a small thought ran through his mind. I could try that thing with my muscles. Naruto had no time to think about where the thought came from and concentrated all of his energy into strengthening his body. The kunai reached Brat's chest, but much to the surprise of the Chunin and the men hold him, the blade had just barely managed to break the skin. A single drop of blood dripped out of the boy's body and rolled down the side of his chest. What the hell? The Chunin thought in surprise. He raised the blade to strike again, but a hand had grabbed his arm. "What the?" he said in surprise before the man began to speak. "By order of the Hokage, you, Shinji Tamiyama, are to be executed for attacking a civilian and for intent to kill," the man said in monotone. He wore black ninja garbs with a bear mask covering his face. The only part of him that looks remotely human was the shock of brown hair sticking above his hair. He then turned to the men holding Naruto and added, "For assisting in attempted murder, your penalties are also death." The Chunin growled in anger and tried to strike the bear-masked Anbu, but a wet link caused the man to drop to the ground, his eyes lifeless and his head separated from his body. The men who were holding Naruto instantly dropped the boy as a line of blood appeared diagonally across their chests. The person who killed them had on the same black ninja clothes that the man with the bear mask had. However, this person had long purple hair and a porcelain mask. The woman sheathed her sword before turning to the bear-masked man. "Is he all right?" "The boy appears fine. He seems to have fainted from the shock, but other than that he's fine," the man replied, picking up the child. "Okay, take the boy to his home while I go to the Hokage and explain what happened," she said before shining away. Naruto woke up the next morning with a jump. He was breathing hard, his face dripping in sweat. He looked around and saw that he was in his room and that he was in his bed. "Was that all a dream?" he said out loud. He tore off the covers of his bed and saw that he was still wearing the cloths he had on from last night. They were ripped and torn at odd intervals, and a single stain of blood was at the center of his shirt. So all that did happen last night, Naruto thought sadly as he got out of his bed. The first thing Naruto noticed was the lack of any kind of pain. No matter how much endured a beating, there would always be some form of soreness or pain even if he had fully healed. Shrugging this off, Naruto walked into his kitchen and pulled out a bowl of instant ramen. After cursing the 5 minutes it takes for the noodles to cook, he began to eat. However, his mind surprisingly wasn't on the delicious meal in front of him. His thoughts were on what he did last night. He had passed out from the strain of stopping a kunai from punching through him, but he managed to stop a kunai from killing him. The boy knew that he had stamina out the ass, and he could normally absorb most blows, but last night he had managed to do something even High Jonin couldn't do. How the hell had he managed to do that? Maybe I should ask Gigi if he heard of anything like this, he thought as he finished the bowl and decided to go for seconds. Hiruzen Sarutobi, known as the Professor and the God of Shinobi. This man is famous for being not only the longest reigning Hokage in the Konoha's history, but also as, arguably, the strongest one as well. Reputed as knowing over 1,000 justice, the man was definitely not one to be trifled with, yet, the foe before him was perhaps too powerful for even this man to conquer. With a mighty battle cry, he plunged his hand and stamped the Hokage's stamp onto form in front of him. The third Hokage gave a happy sigh. He was finally finished with the paperwork, for now. He knew that another even bigger pile was going to plague him soon. However, his thoughts went from his paperwork to another nuisance. His Anbu had spoken to him late last night, and what he heard greatly disturbed him. While he was glad that Naruto wasn't seriously harmed, his ability to take a beating that your average ninja wouldn't manage to walk from provides a serious problem. He knew that the boy was attacked before, but as always would have some kind of bruise to show for it. Naruto had already told him how he was able to endure attacks, and the Hokage knew that the Kyuubi has something to do with it. After all, the fox was known for being able to endure any attack that hit it. Perhaps the fox was excreting some kind of influence on the boy, if only subconsciously. He was brought from this musings when the door to his office slammed open. "Hokage-sama, Naruto is here to see you," his assistant Kasami told him. The old man gave a smile and said, "All right, let him in, I am finished with my work for the most part anyway." She nodded and turned around. Seconds later, the blonde practically kicked the door open and rushed inside. Any thoughts that the child was being influenced by the fox were destroyed when he saw that famous grin on the boy's face. His sapphire blue eyes were shining and his face seemed to glow. "Hey, Gigi," the boy said rather loudly, "about ready to give up that hat yet?" "Well, Naruto, I think that I have about a good few years left as Hokage, but when I do desire to retire again, I trust that you will be strong enough to take over for me," he asked rhetorically, for Sarutobi already knew what the boy was going to say. "Ha, of course I'll be strong to replace you as Hokage soon," Naruto shouted. Good, good, I was afraid last night might have knocked some of that spirit out of you." With that statement, Naruto seemed to deflate a little and his grin shrank a little. "Yeah, but it's nothing out of the ordinary, right?" The Hokage was saddened that Naruto had grown accustomed to constant beatings and attacks. His eyes drifted from the boy in front of him to the pictures on the wall behind him. They stopped when they reached a man with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a small smile on his face. "Oh Minato, you would be rolling in your grave if you saw what was happening to your son." "Oh, that reminds me, Gigi, there was something that I wanted to tell you," Naruto said suddenly. The Hokage was brought from his thoughts by the tone of voice that Naruto had used. It was low and quiet, almost like he was trying to tell a secret, and his head was looking down towards the ground. "Yes, Naruto. Last night, when I was being beat up," Sarutobi shuddered slightly, "I didn't feel anything. I knew they were hitting me. I could feel their punches and stuff, but I wasn't being hurt." The boy looked up, and his eyes sent the Hokage a questioning gaze. "I see. How do you feel right now?" "I feel fine, just a bit sore, like as though I ran for a few miles." I was wondering if you could tell me how I did it," the boy asked. The look on his eyes changed from questioning glance to one reminiscent to pleading. The Hokage's heart went out to the boy, only 6 years old, and understands that he should have lived through the attack from last night. Of course, Sarutobi had some idea of how Naruto was doing it, but he couldn't tell the boy, at least not right now. "Well, since I missed your birthday, I guess I could tell you how you managed to survive that attack. You see, it has to do with your family." The boy's face lightened up at the mention of family. Then again, him being an orphan, it was completely understandable. "You see, the Uzumaki clan was famous for their toughness and their large amount of endurance and stamina," the Hokage said, thinking that it wasn't a total lie. "So do you happen to know anything about my parents?" Naruto asked, a sense of hope shining in his voice. "Unfortunately, I don't remember much on your parents. They're rather average shinobi and I wasn't around them often," the old man lied smoothly. He hated to lie to the boy, but at the moment it was for the best. Naruto seemed to be affected by this as his head slumped and his eyes lost a bit of the light they had. Quickly trying to fix the situation, the Hokage added, "Don't feel too down, Naruto. I am sure that your parents love you, I know it for a fact." This seemed to work. The boy was coming out of his little spell. "Anyway, how about I treat you to some ramen, okay?" And with that, any trace of sadness was gone. The boy looked up with a smile on his face and said, "All right. Come on, old man, let's go." The Hokage gave a smile and was about to get up when the telltale whirl of leaves appeared. At the center, an Anbu officer with a weasel mask appeared. He was already in a kneeling position. "Hokage-sama, I have urgent news to tell you about them," he said in a flat, monotone voice. The old man nodded and said, "I am sorry, Naruto, but I'm going to have to take a rain check on that ramen." Instantly the boy's eyes were downcasted again. "But how about I send somebody out with you to make sure that you get yourself a few bowls?" His eyes seemed to brighten up slightly and a small smile was on his face. The Hokage walked Naruto to the door and said to Kasami, "Can you please assign a ninja to watch Naruto for me? Tell them it's B rank pay. Well, sir, there is one man that was going to request a mission from you, but he seemed a bit off, if you catch my drift, she replied. It doesn't matter, I just send him in. Some 30 seconds passed before a loud voice declared, "Hi, Hokage-sama, I am ready to complete any mission with the power of youth." Naruto stood wide-eyed. The man in front of him was louder than he was. He had on a green jumpsuit with a matching green flax jacket. However, it was his head that mainly caught his attention. He had a shiny bowl haircut that was outshined by his sparkling, almost blinding teeth. To top it all off, he had two huge eyebrows that looked like two caterpillars crawled on his face and decided that they didn't want to move. The Anbu and Hokage sweat dropped. Thank you, Guy. This mission I am assigning you to is B rank. Do you accept it? Might Guy gave a huge smile and shouted, "Hi, Hokage-sama. I will complete this mission with great speed, and if I fail then I will do 100 D rank missions in one day, and if I can't do that I will run around the village 400 times and give." Okay. Your mission is to escort this boy here to Ichirama's ramen stand. Guy looked down and noticed Naruto for the first time since he entered the room. He is not to be bothered by anyone or there will be serious consequences. Am I clear, Guy? The Hokage said in a serious tone. Guy returned his gaze to the Hokage and gave his patented nice guy pose. Don't worry about anything, Hokage-sama. I will be sure that he'll get there safely. Good, here is the money to pay for the meal, the Hokage said with a smile. Naruto, I'll talk to you later. All right, Gigi, I'll talk to you later, the kid said while returning the smile. It was a few months since his 7th anniversary of his birthday. And things have returned to normal for Naruto. Well, for the most part, things have returned to normal. The villagers did what they usually did after they celebrated the anniversary of the Kyuubi's defeat. They would keep a 10-foot distance away from him. It seems that after they got all the hate and anger out of their systems and just seemed to be afraid of any retribution from the boy. However, the villagers seemed to be even more afraid of him than normal. Naruto had no idea that the 3rd Hokage has bumped up the security for the boy in light of the attacks on him. Then again, Naruto's mind wasn't on the villagers at the moment. His thoughts were on the Konoha Ninja Academy. In just a few months, he will be starting at the academy and be on his first step to becoming Hokage. I can't wait for the academy to start, the boy shouted out loud, causing a few villagers to turn and look at him. Hey, I bet if I do well enough they'll let me graduate early, he continued to think aloud. Maybe I should get something on training and impress my teacher. What's the Hokage thinking allowing that thing to attend the ninja academy? One villager cried looking at the blonde child as he walked down the street towards the library. We should be giving that brat the means of which to kill us all. We have to do something, another villager cried. I wouldn't do anything to that boy if I were you, one man said to the two. The men looked at the newcomer. He was a rather average-looking man with a Konoha headband wrapped around his head like a bandana. Why should we? You're a shinobi, you know what that thing is capable of doing. We have to attack it before it attacks us, the first man yelled. That's exactly why you should try anything. The boy is impervious to any damage you civilians are capable of, the ninja said calmly. What the hell do you mean he's impervious to anything we are capable of? The second civilian asked. According to reports from his medical records, the kid has been attacked before, and only suffered minor injuries. No matter what you civilians would do, there is absolutely nothing that can be done to hurt that demon. You'll just end up dead like the other fools who tried it, the shinobi answered, an almost bored look on his face. If that's the case, what will you do then? I bet you're one of those ninja that actually protects the demon brat. The man scoffed and answered, I don't care what happens to the brat. I am just giving you boys a fair warning. He turned and began to walk away before saying, besides, I am sure there are other ninja out there that are willing to put down the demon brat as you call him. With that being said, he quickly shushined away, leaving the men to their own thoughts. Line break Mizuki was at the receptionist booth in the Konoha library and he was not having a good day. The recently promoted Chunin was expecting to be assigned to exciting and interesting missions. Not to be a freaking librarian, yet, here he was, stuck with this assignment by that senile old man known as the Hokage. His excuse being that Mizuki was still a rookie and needed some time on probation before being assigned to actual missions. Add that to the fact that he was just told before he went to library that he would have to teach at the academy. Mizuki couldn't believe it. He spent 4 years as a genin and had to go through that hell known as the Chunin exams just to be told that he was being sent to the academy to teach a bunch of brats. However, none of that could match his anger when he saw that blonde demon brat walk into the library and approach the desk. Naruto had never gone to the Konoha library before. He was always the type of guy that always wanted to be on the move and could never really sit around and read. He wasn't illiterate, however. The Hokage did teach him how to read when he was younger. Looking around, he saw all the books that were hanging high on the shelves, and thought, crap, I don't know where anything is. Naruto walked up to the front desk where Mizuki was silently grinding his teeth and asked, "Excuse me, could you help me out?" The white-haired man looked down and asked with a strained voice, "What exactly do you need, kid?" Naruto didn't seem to notice the edge in his voice and asked, "Do you know any good books for training?" "Why the hell would you need a book on ninja training, kid?" Mizuki asked, struggling to contain his hatred for the blonde. "I am going to be going to the Ninja Academy in a few months and I want to get a head start," he grinned. The first thoughts of Mizuki was to simply kick the kid out of the library and tell him never to come back, but he knew that the Hokage would quickly be on his ass and he'd be lucky if he went on a C-rank escort mission. However, Mizuki was extremely angry that he had to actually teach this boy in the academy. He was about to tell the boy that he couldn't help him when an evil thought went through his mind. "So you want to get some books for school, Mizuki said with a false smile. "Nice to see students are actually taking the initiative, I like that." Naruto couldn't believe what he was hearing. Someone was actually impressed by him. "Why yeah, I am going to train hard so I can become Hokage." "Hokage, you say? That's quite the lofty goal you have there," he replied, trying to hold down a laugh. "Why exactly do you want to become Hokage?" "I'm going to become Hokage so that people will respect me and stop treating me like crap," he shouted. Mizuki pretended to give an impressed look and said, "Hang on a second, kid, I'll be right back." Then he left the receptionist desk and went into the back room of the library. A few minutes later, he returned with a really old book that appeared to be falling apart as he carried it. He placed it right in front of Naruto and said, "Here ya go, kid. I want you to have this book." The boy gave it a confused and said, "What is this supposed to be?" Mizuki gave a gasp and said, "Do you have any idea what I just gave you, kid?" A ripped up old book. Not just any old book. This book was written by one of the most powerful ninja in world. Naruto was stunned. Really? Who was he? Mizuki gave a grin when he said, no one knew what his real name was, but he was called Tekai, Iron Mass. The boy was in awe. Yep, the man was known for his skill as a ninja, but was legendary for his teachings. Naruto wanted to just grab the book and run home and practice whatever cool techniques the book could teach him, but a part of him was suspicious. The book was obviously just a few days away from the trash heap, and it wouldn't be the first time someone tried to shovel defect crap to him. Also, the fact that if this book was as great as the man said, why it was in such bad condition anyway. "Wait, this book does sound really awesome, but why are you giving it to me?" the boy asked cautiously. Mizuki gave a silent curse at the brat being so suspicious of him, but quickly came up with something on the fly and said, "To be perfectly honest with you, boy, I feel sorry for you." What? We are both orphans, and don't ask how I know, I can tell. If you were from a clan, then you wouldn't have asked me for a book for training. Your parents would have taught you. If you weren't from a clan, then your parents would have brought you here themselves, Mizuki said with a laugh at Naruto's stunned eyes. It was common knowledge to everyone in the village that Naruto was a parent. A rumor was that the demon's parents abandoned him when they found out that he was the Kyuubi's container. "I had no one to really help me when I was a kid, and seeing ya here kind of brings back a few memories," he said with a far-off look. Not many people know about this book, and even those who did knew of it weren't able to master his teachings. Heck, not even I could do it. The book fell into disrepair and was going to get thrown out, but I am curious to see what you do with it. He finished his little speech with a warm smile. Judging from the look on his face, the brat was convinced hook, line, and sinker. Naruto was indeed convinced by Mizuki. He grabbed the book and said, "Don't worry, I'll master everything in this book in time for the academy. Watch me." With that he ran out the library, eager to start. Mizuki gave a laugh and shouted after him, "Good luck, kid." A man who watched the scene unfold walked towards the silver-haired man and asked, "Why did you give that brat the book?" He gave a wicked laugh and said, "That great training book I gave him was an old workout book by some old tart that wanted to scam people out of their money. It gave some insane training advice that only an idiot would follow. The head of the library was going to throw it out because it was worthless, but I thought it would be better if we gave the demon a little helping hand." Line break. Naruto went to the abandoned training ground that he often went to practice his techniques that were in the book. The boy gave a happy smile as he looked at the book in his possession. The cover was already ripped off and the pages were a rank-looking yellow. Regardless, the blonde opened the ancient tome and got a huge dose of dust in the face. Shaking it off, Naruto looked down and read the faded words. "If you are reading this book, you are on the first step on a long path. This training will be tough and will require a lot of hard work, but rest assured when you are done you will be able to face any opponent and win." Naruto gave a smile as he read this. "The first training exercise will increase your speed. You'll be able to run from the ocean to the mountainside in the blink of an eye. You'll be able to get into your enemy's base and get right behind them and stab them in the back." Naruto was amazed that there was a technique that could do something like that. He tries to read on, but the words were really faded and very hard to read. To perform this technique, one must simply kick 100 times in 1 second at the ground. Naruto was confused by this, quick the ground 100 times. He doubted that he could kick the ground the 10 times in a second, let alone 100 times. However, if it did work it would be such an awesome move, one that could make him Hokage. So with vigor, Naruto began to practice the technique that the book had suggested. 2 weeks later, when a genin is first promoted to chunin, they are assigned what is often called the sanity period. During this period, the new chunin are forced into work for the village, not unlike the D-rank missions done while one was a genin. These missions tend to be very mundane jobs such as teaching at the academy or gate duty. These jobs tend to be so boring that some chunin were reported to go crazy in the normalcy. The only thing that separated these jobs from the D-rank missions was that one could take some solace in the fact that these jobs are at least somewhat important for the villages. Katetsu Hagane and Izumo Kamizuki were newly promoted chunin that were also going through their sanity period. However, the two were quite content with their position at the moment. They went through a grueling chunin exam in Takigakure and were happy that they didn't have to go through any more trouble after being promoted. The two partners sat in their post just outside the great walls of the village and were talking about the big-time issues of their day. "This is why Kurenai Yuhi is hotter than Kaide Matsumoto," Hagane commented, finishing the rant that he had started some 5 minutes ago. "We've gone over this, Katestu. Kurenai has that kind of exotic hotness, but Kaide has that sort of girl next door kind of hot. Those two have a nice sort of relationship that almost cute in a sort of way, so I believe that Asuma should stay with Kaide. Hey, if I know Asuma, it's only a matter of time before he jumps ship and then Kaide will be mine." Katestu grinned evilly as Izumo's sweat dropped. Excuse me, sires," a nearby voice called. The person who had spoken was a rather shy-looking man stood before them with a long Takigakure headband covering his neck like a scarf. He wore brown pants and a tan jacket covering a white shirt. The chunin were amazed that this man was able to get this close to them without being sensed. Katestu was the first to recover from shock. "Hello and welcome to Konoha. May I ask why you are here?" The man seemed to fidget with what he was going to say before saying, "I am here to deliver a message to the Hokage." "Oh, yes, the Hokage was expecting you. I'll escort you to the Hokage, okay?" Izumo asked. I suppose that would reasonable. Please lead and I will follow," the man said, keeping his head down. Kasumi wasn't quite prepared for the sight that she seen when opening the door to the Hokage's office. She had been working for the old man since he had taken over after the Kyuubi attack, and has seen her share of strange things in that time. However, nothing could prepare her for the sight before her. The Hokage was sitting in his desk, his paperwork stacked neatly in the completed side. While this was very shocking, the fact that he was reading a pornographic magazine with a title that made her blush while giggling perversely. However, she took a soothing breath and said in the most sweet tone, "Hokage-sama." Kasumi stifled a laugh as the old man quickly put away the magazine before putting on an innocent face. Kasumi, what seems to be the problem?" "You have a messenger from Takigakure." I expect as much, please let him in." "Yes, sir," she said before leaving. She added, "I never knew you were into that kind of thing, sir. Kind of kinky, aren't you?" "Just shut up and let the man in already," the Hokage growled. Kasumi gave a giggle before leaving the room. A few seconds later, a short skirmish-looking man walked into the room. "I can come back later if you want me to," he said quietly. "No, you're fine. So what can my village offer the likes of Takigakure?" the Hokage asked calmly. The leader of Takigakure has 2 requests. The first is to open talks for a new and more mutually beneficial treaty for both villages. The Hokage was stunned. The relationship between the Konohagakure and Takigakure had been a strained one since the village ordered the assassination of the first Hokage, but in recent years the policies of the village have become friendlier to foreigners. It was amazing that the once fiercely independent nation was beginning to open its doors to the world. "Tell your leader that I will be pleased to have him here." And what was the second thing he wanted to talk about? "My master also wants to discuss the issues we have with our Jinchuriki," the man said quietly. Line break. It's been 2 months since Naruto started practicing the technique the book had suggested. And it was beginning to show some progress. Naruto knew that there was absolutely no way he would be able to make 100 steps in a second at the start. He wasn't that childish or stupid. However, that didn't stop him from training every day and was slowly beginning to pay off. In fact, the blonde spent actually began to skim out on his ramen consumption just for the sake of training. Today, he managed to get 4 steps in. While that didn't look like much of an accomplishment, he could barely do 3 steps a few weeks ago. He also tried to tap into his Uzumaki endurance ability but couldn't tell if he was doing anything, so Naruto decided to simply focus on his speed technique. Naruto laid spread eagle on the ground, his blonde hair soaking wet from sweat, yet despite this Naruto had a smile on his face. Even though he dead tired, he never felt better in his life. Even thought other week he had managed to steal some fruit from a vendor and got halfway before the man had even noticed that something was up.
Naruto was still laughing at the look on the mon's face when 5 of his pairs were taken right in front.
All right, break time is over, Naruto said with a shout. Time to get back to work. I only got 4 months left before I start school. The book gave a suggestion on how to use the speed technique. By tossing as far away as possible, and then try to catch it before hitting the ground. This was the first step at mastering the technique. Eventually one would have to throw up to 10 rocks in different directions and catch all of them without any of them touching the ground. So Naruto went out and collected a huge stack of rocks to practice with. He took a deep breath and grabbed a rock the size of a golf pear and threw it as hard as he could. Then, he took off, pumping his legs as hard as he could to reach the rock. Another benefit of tossing these rocks was a stronger arm. It seemed that no matter how fast he got, the rock seemed to fall faster, so, when the rock had predictably hit the ground before he could catch it, Naruto simply took it as a sign that he was at least getting better at throwing stuff. I was so close, I almost got 5 steps in that run. The blonde thought excitedly, a few more tries and I'll have it done by tomorrow. Line break the Tree of Heroes stood proud and tall in the center of Takigakure no Sato. The village hidden in the waterfall. Created by the first Hokage of Konoha as a sign of friendship and trust between the two villages. The Tree of Heroes was used to contain the evil demon, the Nanabi no Kabutomushi. After it was given to the village, the tree stood tall and proud like the ninja of the village. Today, the current leader of the Takigakure stood before the tree with a sad smile on his face. In front of him was a small child. A little girl with green hair and fuchsia-colored eyes looked at him. She wore simple cloths that kept her reasonably warm. She was well fed and showed signs that she was quite strong for her age. The leader walked up to the girl and said in a calm voice, "Hello, and how are you doing today, Fu?" The little girl didn't even turn her head up to look at the man and said in a rather flat voice, "I am doing fine today, uncle."
"We are going to be leaving the village today, Fu," he continued, getting a small smile at the look that had briefly flashed across her face. Fu had never left the village before, and only rarely went outside the Tree of Heroes, so the thought of leaving the Takigakure was obviously a surprise for her. However, any sign of surprise was quickly hidden. "I am going to be meeting with the Hokage of Konoha, and you're coming with me so that we can continue your training in a different setting." Fu took a second to think about this. Her uncle had always been kind to her in comparison to the rest of the villagers, who simply ignore or avoid her whenever she had a chance to leave the tree. However, her uncle wouldn't bring her on a trip for something as simple as training. She was only being taught rather basic shinobi skills, and the ability that her Biju grants her allowed her to fight a genin-level ninja and win, and it was only getting stronger by the day. While Fu did want to desperately spend some time out her tree, she couldn't help but be slightly suspicious of something. "Is there another reason why you want me to join you for this trip, uncle?" she asked. The man gave a guilty sigh before saying, "Yes, Fu, there is. My sources have told me that Konoha has someone of great interest. He's someone that I want you to meet." The leader of Takigakure said in quiet voice to the girl in front of him. "You see, this child is just like you. He also holds a demon in him." In second chapter, completed. Not much action in this chapter. More of the preparations for the next chapter. I also have a few more ideas for Naruto fics and I considering writing some of them. Well, see, I am not reading the manga that much anymore, so I have plenty of time to write. I mean, seriously, am I the only one who feels a small pain in his heart when the souls of someone are ripped out during the manga? I mean, seriously. Nagato I could forgive, and that was only for the badass fight. I almost ready to give up on the manga at this point, but I digress. In one of the bunkers under the city, 5 men stood at attention waiting for orders. Their faces betrayed no sign of emotion due to the fact that we're standing there for at least 2 hours. They were used to their master's attempts to force them to show emotions, and they knew that if they showed any sign of anything other than calm patience, the master would throw the lot of them back to reconditioning. They were careful not to even shudder in case he was watching. After a few more minutes, they heard the rhythmic tap of a cane coming towards their position. Again, they showed no sign of emotions, and waited until their master was within range to speak to them. The figure that stood before them gave them a glance of pride. "Your mission is to protect this person right here," the man said emotionlessly, holding a picture for the 5 to see. "Hi, Danzo-sama," they said in unison. "According to one of our members, we hear that there is going to be an attack on this boy soon. That plus the fact that a foreign leader will be entering the city with a weapon of mass destruction, and we have absolutely no idea what their intentions are. You make sure this child is safe. Failure to do so will mark a severe punishment for all of you." "Hi, Danzo-sama," they repeated with a flat tone and shunshin away. "We have been walking on thin ice for the longest. I must to protect the village from any danger, even if the village created it themselves," he thought with a small scowl on his face. The sun was just lifting over the horizon. The shadows of the trees were stretched long over the road. The forest surrounding Konoha was very peaceful.
The birds were chirping softly and the animals were just beginning to start their carefree days. A small carriage, surrounded by 2 guards on both sides, was moving slowly down the road, making the only real noise for miles. One of the inhabitants of the carriage was just waking up, rubbing her eyes and giving a small yawn. "So you finally woke up, Fu?" the driver of the carriage asked with a small grin. The little girl snapped awake and began to look around before her dull orange eyes caught sight of the driver. She began to bow before saying to the driver, "I apologize, uncle, I didn't mean to hold up the trip." Her uncle was dressed in a dull brown gown that vaguely resembled the ones that cages wear. He also had on a small conical straw hat, casting a shadow on his face that covered his eyes but not his smile. "Looks like you're still just a little kid," Fu-chan. While Fu didn't show it, he knew that she was burning up on the inside. "Again, I apologize for my weakness, uncle. I was trying to stay up and keep guard, but my eyes began to feel heavy from keeping them open for so long and let me guess, next thing you know you couldn't open them back up, he said with a chuckle. The girl said nothing and turned her gaze forward and stared down the long path. After a small silence, Fu's uncle gave a happy sigh. "We finally arrived," he said with a smile. The gates of Konoha were massive in size and seemed to stretch in both directions for miles. No matter how much Fu has trained to steal her curiosity, she just couldn't help but look upwards, trying to see the top of those huge walls. Her uncle had left the carriage and approached the gate. His 2 guards were only 2 paces behind him. Fu was slightly annoyed about them leaving her and quickly ran after them. 2 men were sitting at a guard post a little ahead of the gate. One man had a bandage wrapped around his face and black spiky hair. The other had on a bandana-like Konoha headband. They both were wearing the standard Konoha flax jacket and ninja uniform. "Welcome to Konoha. Before you enter, may we please see your papers expressing your intent for entering the village and registration for traveling through the Hai no Kuni?" the man with the bandana asked happily. "Why, of course." The leader of Takigakure simply pulled a few papers from the inside of his robes and handed them to the guard, who promptly gave it to his partner. "You know, you could have just read them," his partner, the man with the bandana, looking over the papers. "You're right, I could have, but I didn't, and now you are reading them. That is how the chain of command works in this village. The older and more experienced fighter is in charge while the lower rank does all the work." "Chain of command, my left butt cheek. We were promoted at the same time, you dolt. And me, you are the exact same age," the other guard near shouted. "Ah, but I was handed my jacket before you got yours, and I am a few months older than you," the bandaged guard said with a nod like it made all the difference in the world. "Your name comes before mine in alphabet, so of course you get your flax jacket first, you dumbass." Excuse me, gentlemen." The 2 guards, who looked like they were actually going to fight, soon stopped and turned to the leader of Takigakure and said angrily, "What? Can I enter the village?" he said flatly, and the 2 guards gave a sheepish look. "Of course, Shigeru-sama. The Hokage had been awaiting your arrival. Please allow me to escort you to the hotel that you and your men will be staying at," the bandaged man said, bowing towards the man. "Thank you, I will appreciate your hospitality," Suikaze said in calm voice. "Okay. Azumo, take the leader of Takigakure to his hotel, and then inform Hokage-sama of his arrival," the guard commanded. "Hey, wait a minute. You just said that you would take him to his hotel. Why'd I have to do it, Katetsu?" Azumo asked angrily. Shigeru and company sweat dropped. It would be another 10 minutes before an actually sane ninja would show the leader of Takigakure to his hotel. Meanwhile, Naruto Uzumaki was walking to his training site with a smile on his face. It had only been a few months since he had started using his speed technique, and the most progress he managed to do was only 5 steps in a single second. While this may be discouraging to some, the sun-kissed blonde was quite proud of his abilities so far. This was mainly due to noticeable increase in Naruto's natural speed and endurance. He noticed that he could run from his training ground to Ikirama's ramen in under 5 minutes. This is impressive in that they are both on 2 totally opposite sides of the village, and his breathing was only a little heavy. Not only that, but after managing to break 5 steps, he was only a few feet away when the rock hits before it hit the ground during his training exercises. Anyway, Naruto was wearing a simple white t-shirt with a red swirl in the center of it. He wore tan-orange shorts with worn-out black shoes. He held Tekai's training book in his hands. The boy knew better to simply leave the book at his apartment. The odds of it being stolen or destroyed were simply too great, plus it was good to keep the book near in case he was interested in learning a new technique. The boy was out of the residential area and approaching the training areas when a ninja with a weasel mask appeared in front of him. "Naruto Uzumaki, you are to report to the Hokage-sama's office immediately," he said in monotone. I wonder what the old man wants, Naruto thought, and then said, "Fine then, I wanted to talk to him about the academy anyway." With that, the boy turned around and began to walk towards the Hokage tower, hoping to get this meeting over with quick so that he could get back to his training. He felt a hand grab him by his collar and quickly shunted him to the Hokage's office. The Hokage was sitting at his desk patiently waiting for the arrival of the Suikaku and his niece, although he wasn't surprised when the swirl of leaves marked the arrival of two figures. "Hello, Naruto, how are you feeling?" the old man asked with a smile on his face. Truth be told, Sarutobi hadn't seen the boy since the incident on his birthday, although he did keep tabs on his movements and saw him running around trying to catch rocks that he thrown in his crystal ball. The boy shot an angry glance at the Anbu, who seemed to just ignore it and said, "I was doing fine until he comes and almost kidnaps me." "Naruto," I asked Itachi-san. Itachi does mean weasel, strange thing to name a child. "To bring you to my office. There is something that I want to discuss with you." The boy gave a pout but approached the Hokage's desk and waited for the man to speak. "Now Naruto, I have a very important person that is coming here to talk with me about something very important. He is the leader of a small village, but his village possesses something that will be very important for the future of our village. Do you understand?" the Hokage asked kindly. "Yes sir." This did perk Naruto's attention. Maybe the Hokage wanted him to attend so that he would understand how to talk with foreign diplomats, or maybe to show him off to other villages. Images of himself discussing politics and discussing mergers between the two villages danced through his head for a moment. What the Hokage said next snapped him back to reality. "Good, you see, he brought his niece and I want you to entertain her for while they're here," he finished, counting down the time before Naruto's reaction. It was about 3 seconds or 4 blinks before Naruto shouted, "What?" "I want you to keep the diplomat's niece company for their time here," the Hokage repeated. "Why do I have to keep some spoiled brat some company for today? How can I become a good Hokage babysitting some guy's brat?" "First of all, Naruto, this brat is the niece of the village leader. That means that if something was to happen to village leader, she would be second in line after his son. She could be the leader of the Tokigakure one day, so it would be good to be on good terms with her now if you are going to be Hokage." Naruto gave a grumble, but didn't say anything in contradiction. "Besides, we aren't really sure why the leader of Tokigakure is here for in the first place. For all we know, he could be trying to broker a political marriage between his niece and the future Hokage." Naruto's face changed from an angry look to a shocked and then a horrified one. "No way am I going to get together with some girl I never even met. Girls are disgusting." Naruto shouted angrily, pointing his finger at the Hokage, who just gave another chuckle at the boy. Rubbing the boy's hair, he said, "How do you know you want like her? Naruto, you never even met her yet." The boy gave a pout and closed his eyes, causing his face to look very fox-like. His mind, however, was running thoughts such as, "Well, maybe I finally make a friend. Maybe she's a ninja and could teach me some cool moves for the academy." In a chamber inside the Hokage's tower, the leaders of Tokigakure and Konohagakure were exchanging pleasantries. Shigeru the analysis, brother to Enji the performer, and one of the twin dragons of the waterfall. "It is a pleasure to see you here this day," the Hokage said, giving the man in front of him a small bow, with his guards promptly following this motion. Naruto looked confused for a second but clumsily gave his own bow. "Sandame Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the god of shinobi, it is a pleasure for you to allow us humble Taki Nin in your presence," Suikaze said with equal respect, giving the man a bow in return. This was followed by his guards and Fu bowing. While the atmosphere was a bit formal, there was subtle tension in the air. Tokigakure and Konohagakure were not in the best of terms due to the actions of the Tokigakure Council. Nearly 60 years before this meeting, the council ordered one of their ninja to assassinate the Shodaime Hokage. While the assassination attempt failed, it had broken any sort of relationship the two countries and almost caused Konoha to go to war. It was obvious to Sukas that the Shodaime hasn't forgotten this. "Before we start these negotiations between our two villages, I want to introduce you to my niece," Fu Shigeru said, trying to relieve the tension somewhat. Fu gave another bow and said respectfully, "It is nice to meet you, Hokage-sama." "Ah, it's a pleasure to meet you, Fu-san. This is a very close friend to me and my surrogate grandson, Naruto." The boy seemed to shine from what the Hokage said him and said with a grin, "Hi, it's nice to meet you, Shigeru-san, and you too, Fu-san." The Hokage's guards shook their heads, seeing as they were used to Naruto's informality with leaders, but now was a bad time for it. Shigeru's guards were a bit taken back by Naruto's lack of respect. Fu's eyes seemed to rise to tip of her head. Tokigakure's leader, however, gave a hearty laugh and smiled back at the boy. "It's nice to meet you too, Naruto-san." The tension of the room seemed to lessen slightly, and the Hokage's eyes gave a big gleam. "Well, now that we got pleasantries out of the way, let's get down to business, shall we?" "Sure. Fu-chan, stay here while the Hokage and I hammer out these negotiations," Shigeru said to his niece. "Wait a minute, Shigeru-san. Why don't you allow Naruto-kun to show her around Konoha and keep her company? It will be very boring to simply allow her to just stand here waiting on old men to finish talking," the Hokage suggested. I don't see why not. Make sure that you keep an eye on her, Naruto-san. I trust that you will make sure that she won't get hurt," he said, looking down at the blonde. Naruto looked up to the older man and said with a smile and a shout, "Don't worry about a thing. Shigeru-san. I'll make sure that Fu-san will have a great time in Konoha." With that statement, Naruto quickly grabbed a surprised Fu's hand and dragged her down out of the meeting room, shouting, "I can't wait to show you the Ichiraku's ramen stand." The two men gave a small chuckle at the scene before them, turning to discuss a treaty. Naruto had dragged Fu from the Hokage's office and into one of the nearby alleyways of Konoha. Fu was vaguely surprised that the blonde was capable of practically dragging her down the street. After about a minute of this, Fu had enough and firmly planted her heels into the ground, stopping Naruto from pulling her. "This is quite far enough. I am more than capable of walking on my own," she said curtly. Naruto gave a sheepish grin and rubbed the back of his head. "Sorry Fu-san. I was just so excited to go to Ichiraku's that I couldn't wait."
"Well, that's all nice and all, but I don't want to go to a restaurant. I am not hungry at the moment."
Naruto struggled to keep in a disappointed sigh, hoping that Fu didn't notice. To be honest, the only reason he agreed to do this was for the all-expense-paid trip to his favorite ramen shack, but that plan was shot to hell. "So what do you want to do?" The girl just gave him a mild stare and stated, "I did want to visit the sights of Konoha if that's okay with you." "Great, I know all the sights around Konoha," he said loudly. He then grabbed Fu's hand and began to move further into the alleyway when the mint-haired girl didn't budge. "I am not going any farther into a dank, dark, alleyway. We are perfectly capable of walking down Main Street." "Okay," she told him. Before Naruto could say anything in response, she turned around and began to walk towards the street without him. The blonde stared at her back for a moment and sighed, "This going to be a long day." When walking down the streets of Konoha, Fu couldn't help but feel a little self-conscious. The people were all staring at her with cold looks and mumbling just softly enough for her to barely hear them. What was worse was that when Fu stopped to look at the people, their glares would increase in intensity, and no matter how much ninja training she had, Fu couldn't help but be a little intimidated. However, these were nothing in comparison to the glares and words that Naruto was receiving. However, the boy kept a straight face and marched onwards, ignoring the stares as best he could. "And here we are, the Hokage Mountain," Naruto said loudly. That brought Fu from the trance she was in. She didn't even notice the walk to the mountain, just the stares she was getting. What?" she said quickly. "This is the Hokage Mountain," Naruto said more calmly, but still maintaining the smile that he had before. Fu remained silent, simply drinking in the sight of the huge monument that stood before her, the mountain almost as big as the Tree of Heroes and nearly 5 times more massive. The faces of the Hokages jutted out from the walk and appeared to be looking over the village. "You know, I sometimes go to the very top of the mountain," Naruto said to Fu, who gave no sign of paying any attention. "I love to look down on the village. It's an awesome sight, especially at sunset," he continued on, ignoring the fact that Fu seemed to be toning him out. "Do you have a place like that in the village you're from?" Fu remained silent for a while and Naruto was about to repeat himself when the girl answered, "There is a large tree in the center of my village, about as big as the mountain in front of us." "Really, do you ever climb it?" Naruto asked, amazed that such a tree could be as tall as the mountain. Fu nodded her head, but kept her pink eyes at the mountain and answered, "I live in that tree, and it's been my home since I was a baby." "Wow, it must be awesome to live in such a big tree." The girl gave a shrug and replied, "I don't know if you can say that, it was the only place I've ever known. To be honest, it's quite lonely in there." Fu muttered the last part, although she was silently surprised that she even said it out loud. Naruto heard what she said and couldn't help but sympathize, as he knew what it was like to sit at home and have no one to talk to or do anything with. Then again, when he was at the orphanage with other children, he was pretty much alone. Then he thought of something that he always wanted to try with someone else. "Hey Fu-san, follow me, there's something I always wanted to with someone." Fu allowed her eyes to leave the moment and said, "Fine." Staring at a mountain all day wasn't exactly going to be productive, no was it? Naruto gave no response and led the two in the direction of a park nearby. It was still midday and there wasn't many kids playing, although the ones that were playing quickly shifted to the other side of the park when they noticed the two approaching. While Fu was slightly flustered, Naruto ignored it and continued towards the swing set. He stopped and told Fu, "Sit down, on this one." Fu gave a small glance but obeyed and sat on one of the swings. Naruto then sat on the one right next to her and said, "Okay, we're going to have a contest." The mint-haired girl gave a confused look and asked, "What?" "We are going to have a swinging contest, the one who can swing the highest," he said and began to move. Fu was once again stunned for a moment before she heard Naruto say, "What's wrong? Huh, you afraid like a chicken, or do you know that I'm going to stomp you like a bug? I'll show you a bug." The girl said angrily and began to mimic Naruto's motions. After a while the two were high on the swings, with each one trying to get higher than another. The blonde boy was smiling and laughing, while the mint-haired girl was growling angrily and was determined to outdo the boy on the swing next to her. After about 5 minutes, Naruto leapt from his swing and landed about 6 feet away. Ha! Top that! Fu leapt from her swing and seemed to levitate in the air for a few moments before landing 2 feet in front of the boy. She turned and gave the boy a smirk. HMMPH, I'll race you to the top of the jungle gym, he said running ahead. Fu gave a growl and immediately chased after him. They spent most of the day playing, but around sunset the two decided to go back to the Hokage mansion to see if the boy in front of Fu was definitely not what she had expected. She found it hard to believe that this boy had the same kind of life that she had. Unlike her, he seemed so careless, like he wasn't worried about anything. Walking down the street, he acted like he owned it, walking with a small spring in his step. Fu, however, was tense. Her ears and eyes were careful to pick up on any detail. She noticed how people were talking and pointing at her and Naruto. The blonde didn't seem to notice, but Fu did, and it was really beginning to bug her. "Hey, Naruto. How can you live like this?" she asked. "Live like what, Fu-chan?" Naruto asked. Truth be told, Naruto noticed that the people talking about him and Fu, but he was entirely used to it by now. "When did he start calling me Fu-chan? Like this? These people, they're getting on my nerves, with their whispering," Fu said furiously. Naruto gave a small sigh, and put on his best face. "Don't worry about all right, Fu-chan. They won't bother you, they do that for everyone." Fu misinterpreted Naruto's sigh and replied angrily, "Oh yeah, how come they don't do that to you or any other kid? Why are they doing it to me?" The whiskered blonde gave a confused look to Fu and asked, "What makes you think that they're talking about you?" "Because I am a Jinrochuriki, a container. Everyone in my village is afraid of me. Everyone here knows it and hates me." Naruto stood stunned from Fu's outburst. He wasn't so much interested in the fact that she was a Jinroki whatever, but the fact that she thinks that the people of Konoha hated her. Naruto gave a small snicker at that, but Fu took it as him laughing at her. "What? What is so funny?" she growled angrily, her pink eyes flashing. "I am not laughing at you," Naruto said quickly. "I just think that maybe you aren't the person they're talking about, Fu." "Then who are they talking about him?" she asked, but then she thought, wait a minute, you've been with me all day, is it possible? Are you a Jinrochuriki, Naruto? Fu asked a bit hopefully. Her uncle said that she would get the chance to meet another Jinrochuriki, but she never thought he would be her tour guide. Naruto returned to a confused look and said, "No, I don't think so. I don't even know what a Jinroiki is." His simple words sent a chill down the mint-haired girl's spine. "So, you aren't a Jinrochuriki then," she said softly, her head downcasted with her hair covering her eyes. "Then do you know who might be one then?" "I am sorry, Fu-chan, but I don't even know what a Jinroki is." Fu lowered her head. Her mint green hair covered her face from view. For a moment, she was silent, and then Naruto could hear her sniffling. "Fu-chan, are you okay?" "Yes, I am fine, Naruto," she snapped quickly. "Fu-chan," he said quietly, "I am sorry I'm not a Jinrochuriki, but you don't have to be upset." "You're wrong," she yelled suddenly. "I have every right to be angry. I have an evil monster stuck in my body, and I was thinking that you might be the only one who might understand what it's like when everyone is afraid of you. You, in your perfect little village, don't even notice the glares that people give me, how everyone seems to know what I am." Her eyes were glaring in Naruto's startled ones and began to get teary. Naruto was about to say something when Fu turned around and began to run towards the village, leaving a very confused Naruto behind. After her little outburst, Fu decided to return to the hotel where she was staying. She couldn't wait to return home and leave Konoha behind. Her mind was constantly repaying the conversation she had with Naruto. Of course, he doesn't understand. No one understands, not even Uncle. Why? Why does it have to be this way? Why do I have to be the one to suffer? Tell me why, Mama. Those thoughts continued through her head until she noticed the absence of something. She looked around and saw how people weren't staring at her like they did before, or even like they did back her own village. Most of their glances were in passing. Maybe a double to take to look at her rather unique hair. What in the world? Is everyone ignoring me? She thought as she continued to walk towards the hotel. She eventually walked past the playground that she and Naruto played in a few days ago. Some of the kid that was playing noticed her coming and came up to meet her. "Hey," one of the kids said, approaching Fu. She turned her head and prepared for any possible comment they were going to make when he said, "Wow, did your parents allow you to dye your hair?" "Man, you're lucky. My parents said that pink hair made me look more feminine and won't let me get another hair color," one girl said with a pout. Another girl, a purple-haired one, then said, "Glad to see you ditched that blonde kid. My mom said he isn't nothing but trouble." "I know what you mean. I was playing with him one day and my dad came and started yelling him. Then he grabbed me and dragged me away, and said that he is a horrible kid that can't be trusted and that I shouldn't play with him anymore." Slowly, the conversation between the children turned away from Fu's hair and began to focus on Naruto, and the more that Fu heard, the more she came to a conclusion, that she was wrong, she was dead wrong about Naruto. She turned around and ran off in search of the blonde. leaving the stunned children behind. What's up with her? The pink-haired girl asked curiously. The blonde standing next to her replied, beats me. Fu was about to give up when she heard a loud voice from inside one of the nearby food stands. Hey Gigi-san, serve me another miso. Fu quickly went in the shop and sure enough she saw Naruto grinning like a fool, and an old man who was scolding him, but had a grin that said otherwise. And Naruto? The boy didn't even look away from the noodles, but Fu took his silence as a signal to continue. I am sorry for snapping at you. The boy continued to walk forward while slurping his noodles. Fu sighed and continued by saying, I am so used to people giving me the cold treatment, I have a hard time dealing with people. At the blonde's continued silence, she continued, you've been nice and friendly with me since I got here and I haven't said a good thing to you today. All I ask is that you don't hate me from earlier. Naruto didn't say anything, but took his bowl and downed his broth in a big slurp. Don't worry about it Fu-chan, he said with a smile, I might not be a Jinriki, a container like you are, but I am your friend, right? Fu couldn't believe what Naruto said. All of Tokigakure knew that she was the container of the third most powerful Biju and were afraid to come anywhere near her, even though she hasn't made any attempts at hurting any of them. Naruto on the other hand, simply didn't seem to care if she was a container even though he isn't one. Why yeah, Naruto-kun, we are friends, she said softly, trying to hide the smile on her face. Naruto gave a warm smile, jumped off his stool, and grabbed Fu by her hand. Come on, let's go meet Suakaze-san and Ojii-san. Shikaze and Sarutobi left the meeting room with much more tension than they came in with, and it wasn't from the negotiations. Ironically, the political talks about an alliance between Tokigakure and Konohagakure went surprisingly smoothly. However, the source of their problems was not politics but rather the two young people that they brought with them. The situation actually started during one of the breaks of the meeting when an innocent comment turned the situation sore. Flashback. Glad to hear that those scars healed, Suakaze said with a laugh. The Hokage gave a grin and said, oh, they healed all right. Yet the damned fool didn't learn anything from it. It took him all of 5 months to recover from the injuries he suffered in the name of research. You figured the fool would take a break, maybe, think twice about doing it again, but no, he was back on the job the day he got out of the hospital. Both men laughed at the misfortune of a certain white-haired pervert, and Sarutobi sighed and added, oh, those were some good times. The man hasn't quite been the same since the Kyuubi attack. Ah, the man did lose his apprentice. I mean, you should know who it is to lose a pupil, Sarutobi. The Hokage gave a sigh. Yes, he did know who it was to lose an apprentice. It was a bitter feeling that nagged him to this day. Yep. Minato was almost like a son to Jiraiya. The man loved that kid. Shigeru nodded his head in understanding. I remember when I lose my brother, he was an ambitious jackass, but absolutely adored his village and his family, was willing to sacrifice his life for it. Yeah, Minato was the same, loved his village, believed in the good of all the people of Konoha and that they would treat his sacrifice with respect. HMMPH, my brother would be disappointed in his village if he was still alive. His daughter had suffered the burden of his ambition and his faith. Shigeru said bitterly, the girl has grown cool towards everyone, and it's not that she treated horribly, rather everyone tiptoes around her afraid that she's going to just blow up one day. They don't even see her as a person, just a bomb waiting to go off. So they don't attack her or anything? The Hokage asked curiously. No, they are too afraid that she'll rise up and kill them all to try to attack her. But the villagers found another way to abuse her. They ignore her very existence. Whenever she walks into a store, or go to a playground, people just move around her like she's air. Shigeru replied with a faraway look in his brown eyes. She grown cold to the world. Every now and then she acts like a child, but she has become withdrawn and cold. I am afraid that one point she will grow to hate her people, if she hasn't reached that point yet. Sarutobi couldn't help but sympathize with Suakaze. Naruto seemed to have it much worse than Fu did. Yet it was only recently that he's begun to also grow away from the rest of the village, while before he was willing to socialize. The only thing he seems to do now is train for the academy. He's even stopped visiting as much as he used to. I see that you have the same problems as I have, Hokage-sama, the observant leader noted. The Hokage gave a silent curse for allowing his emotions to be read so easily, and Suakaze gave a grin. Don't worry about it, Sarutobi. From what I see from the boy, it would take a hell of a lot to even dent that smile of his. The Sandaime gave a small sigh and answered, I suppose it would take a lot to bring him down. So how did he take it when you told him that he was a Jinrikiriki? The smile on the Hokage's face dampened slightly, but Shigeru seemed to take it a different way. Ah, yes, I can remember when I told Fu. She was only 3 at the time, so she took it relatively well, all things considering. Seeing that kid, he probably took it well. Actually, I haven't told him yet. There was a small inaudible pause as Suakaze lost his grin and replaced it with an incredulous look. You haven't told him yet? I thought that it would be better from the boy if he learned about his curse at a later date. The Hokage said flatly. Later date. The kid has the power to level 10 villages and you decided that it's better to tell him at a later date. Do the villagers know about this? The Hokage's silence gave Takigakuru's leader all the answers he wanted. So everyone knows except the kid himself. It wasn't a question. In all due respect, what are you thinking? You know just as well as I do the life of a Jinrikishiki, and that kid doesn't even know why he has to suffer. The Hokage shot back. You don't think I know that? I am not telling him to give him a chance at a normal life. The younger man scoffed and remarked he lost the chance to have a normal life when the Biju was sealed inside of him. Flashback end. After the break, the tension in the room became almost unbearable. The two men who were actually making progress were having a hard time finding any common ground anymore. Finally, it was decided that the meeting would continue tomorrow. The Hokage was about to send an Anbu to retrieve the two, when they walked through the door. Naruto gave a smile to the two men who returned it, and said, "Sorry, we're late Oji-san." "Oh no, it's quite alright Naruto, we were just finishing off," the Hokage said kindly to the blonde. Shigeru walked over to Fu and asked, "Did you have fun with the boy, Fu-chan?" The girl gave a small smile and replied, "I admit, today was quite productive. I look forward to tomorrow. Apparently, Naruto-kun plans to show me something cool." The blonde gave a sheepish smile and said, "Yeah, I was going to show her some of my ninja techniques." The man gave the boy a grin and said, "Really, maybe Fu could show you a thing or two tomorrow HMMH. The Hokage decided to speak up. "Well, Shigeru, we shall continue the negotiations tomorrow. Please enjoy your stay at your hotel." Shigeru's voice lost its mirth and he replied to Sarutobi, "Yes, Hokage-sama, we shall see you tomorrow. Come Fu." The two gave a small bow to the Hokage and walked out of the room, however not before Fu gave a small wave to Naruto. The Hokage saw this and said slyly to the blonde, "Wow, you work quickly don't you Naruto? A few hours and the girl is already calling you Naruto-kun. I think I hear chapel bells ringing." Predictably the blonde began to splutter a few words in denial as the Hokage chuckled at him. However, in the back of Sarutobi's mind he couldn't help but wonder about what him and Shigeru were talking about. "Maybe I should say something about it," the old man thought quietly. It was a relaxing night at the local tavern, and many ninja of Konoha were drowning out their sorrows in beer and women, or men. In some cases, a ninja tavern was the only place where ninja could completely relax their guard and unwind, and it was a place of many loose lips. If a spy wanted to find information on some of Konoha's most influential or powerful, this will be the place to look for it. However, this man didn't come into the bar for information, he came in, like many others, to simply get away. Masario Sensatari was a man in need of a desperate drink. He was a man of slightly below average height. Something that was a joke in his days as genin among his teammates. His shiny black hair that was beginning to recede was also beginning to dull with age. He wore the standard uniform for a ninja of Takigakure, which included a flak jacket that was a pale blue instead of the green that Konoha ninja wore. It wasn't very uncommon clothing, but Masario was still quite proud of his dress. However, the position he was in currently made him like his clothing he wasn't very important at all. Mizuhira was a proud shinobi from Takigakure, spent his entire life there. Raised children there who were about to become ninja themselves. However, he was damn well aware that Takigakure had only a fraction of the wealth and the prestige that the 5 great shinobi nations possessed. The small village was barely a fifth of the size of Konoha, and most of the ninja there were barely Chunin level, he being one of the few who could call himself Jonin level, if only low Jonin. However, the fact that he was in the center of one of the 5 great shinobi nations made this feat seem insignificant. While normally this didn't bother him too much, there has been talk in the country about Cult of the Waterfall. He could remember hearing the men speak about how it was Takigakuru's right as one of the original shinobi villages to rise up and assert its place in the world. No matter how much he believes that such talk would destroy Takigakure, a small part of him did agree that he was tired of his village being considered second-rate. Being in Konohagakure, the strongest of the 5 great shinobi nations, did very little to alleviate those woes. After ordering a small drink, he took a seat in a quiet section of the bar. His mind wandered to the meeting his leader, Shigeru, had earlier that day with the Hokage, and he couldn't help but feel a bit annoyed. After Shigeru took over the village, it slowly began to reclaim some of the prestige that it in the First Shinobi War. However, in the eyes of the Konoha nin it appeared like it was nothing but a laughable effort. The guards of the Hokage looked at Shigeru-sama, himself and teammates, like they were little children. He couldn't help but resent the bastards because of this. Masario was brought from his thoughts when the quiet groaning of the chair next to him signaled the arrival of someone else. The man next to him ordered a drink and turned to him with a tired smile. "Looks like I wasn't the only one who needed a drink tonight, right Masario?" The man gave a small smile in return and replied, "In this town, I can't help but drink." Senji Machida was slightly shorter than Mizuhira and had red hair that was cut in a mullet style. The man was younger than the middle-aged ninja, and was quite rash, but a decent friend. Yeah, I hear ya man. Senji replied, taking his drink from the bartender, after taking a small swing of sake. Yeah, think that one day our village will grow to be like this? The older man gave a small sigh and replied, who knows at the rest that we are going, it might be a while, but Taki could grow to be a major village again. Good, cause I am tired of the way these Konoha nin are looking at us, like we are bugs under their shoes or something, the man grumbled irritably, the alcohol already beginning to lace in his breath. There has to be a way for us to start getting some respect among the nations. Well, if this meeting with the Hokage goes the way that it's supposed to, then Takigakure would be getting a valued trading partner, and perhaps military aid, Mizurio said, finishing the last of his drink in one big gulp. I hope it goes well, but things look a bit tense between Shigeru-sama and the Hokage, Senji noted, taking another swing from his cup. The men stayed there in the bar for a few hours before Mizurio decided that it was time to return to the hotel. The streets were empty as the two Taki nin stumbled through them, a comfortable silence between them. A small wind in the quiet landing behind them alerted the two ninja that they weren't alone and that whoever it was, they were a trained ninja. Mizurio turned sharply and tossed a few kunai at the black-cladded shinobi, who simply sidestepped them. His path was blocked by Senji, who gave him a punch. The ninja dodged the inebriated ninja and chopped him in the back of his neck. Mizurio gave a silent curse as he watched the ninja take down Senji with one shot. While the man may have been drunk, he was a ninja, and even a drunken ninja was a headache to fight. Not only that, but the younger ninja would have been able to match a low jonin on a good day. This meant that the person they were fighting was either high chunin or above. Either way, this wasn't good. Meanwhile, the ninja turned away from the fallen Taki nin and jumped at the elder ninja. Mizurio blocked a punch, hand winced at pain ran through his arm. The black-clothed ninja ignored any pain the elder nin might have had when he quickly transitioned from his punch, flowing into a low sweeping kick that connected with Mizurio's legs. The Taki nin fell flat on his back and was stopped from getting up by a kunai to his throat. The ninja that attacked Mizurio had wild black hair and a sharp chin. His onyx eyes looked down at the struggling Taki nin with no emotion except thinly veiled annoyance. Mizurio looked with defiance into the eyes of his attacker and spat out, "What do you want with us?" His captor's expression didn't change, but something did happen to his eyes. Mizurio stared into his eyes as the man began to talk. "For the other man, I have no concern over. You are the stronger of the two, and you will be doing the entire world a great favor by obeying my commands." The older nin suddenly stopped struggling as his eyes became glazed over. His brown eyes remained glued to the spinning red eyes of his captors, his head nodding to his commands. Naruto ran to the Hokage's tower, very eager to spend the day as he with his new friend. While Fu may have been a bit annoying at first, but he couldn't deny that he did had fun with the girl. Well, at least until she started yelling at him. Nonetheless, the energetic blonde couldn't wait to hang out with Fu. Today, he promised Fu that he was going to show her something cool, and Naruto already knew what he had in store for her. After running up the stairs and reaching the top of the meeting room from yesterday, he saw Shigeru, Fu, and the old man all waiting for him. While the guards of both leaders and Fu looked rather annoyed, Shigeru and the Hokage gave the boy a smile. "Well, Naruto-san, glad to see that you decided to bless us with your presence," the Hokage said, causing the boy to scratch his head sheepishly. The Hokage gave a sigh and said, "It's alright, Naruto, but it won't look good on your record if you keep coming late to important meetings or people having to force you to come. I wouldn't want my successor to have those kinds of traits." Shigeru added his own opinion. True, in an alliance, if one member of it doesn't react in time to a threat, the entire alliance could be destroyed. I am not sure I can support a village with tardy ninja. No, wait, I am sorry about arriving late. I was up last night planning things out for Fu and me to do today. Isn't that a good sign of being Hokage? Naruto pleaded, causing the two men to chuckle at the boy. Well, planning is a good sign of leadership, but you should still be on time, the Hokage said, causing the boy to begin muttering apologizes again. Anyway, ignoring Naruto-san, let's continue the proceedings that we were doing yesterday. Hokage-sama, Shigeru said with a more serious tone. The Hokage nodded and turned to the blonde and said, "Naruto, the same rules from yesterday apply today. Try not to get Fu-san and yourself in trouble, okay?" "Hi, Gigi-san. Come on, Fu-chan, there's a whole bunch of moves I want to show you," he said, grabbing the girl and dragging her out of the room. As she was being dragged down the hallway, Shigeru commented quietly, "Well, damn, Hokage-sama. Naruto-san wants to show her some moves." They spend one day together and they are already at that stage. The boy certainly works fast, doesn't he? Indeed, he does, Shigeru-sama. At the rate he's going, we might have to arrange a wedding soon, the Hokage added with a grin on his face. Naruto's cry of indignation alerted the two that he could still hear them, and the two leaders gave a hearty laugh before closing the door of the meeting room. "So where are you taking me, Naruto-san?" Fu asked. Once again, Fu couldn't help but be amazed by the strength that the boy had to nearly drag her from the Hokage tower into the streets with no sign of slowing down. The whiskered boy pulling her was leading her down alleyways again, but Fu bit back any comment she was going to make regarding this. After just one day of walking down the main streets of the village, the girl had no intentions of doing that again. "Hey Fu-chan, how fast can you run?" Naruto asked suddenly without turning around. "What does it matter, and you didn't answer my question?" the girl retorted before the blonde replied simply by saying, "It's really important Fu-chan, and it's part of what I am going to show you." The mint-haired girl simply sighed before answering, "On a good day, I suppose I could match a second-year academy student, but I don't know why you need to know that." The blonde turned towards her and gave a grin. "I kinda want to show this to you early because I haven't practiced it since a few days and I hope I didn't get rusty." At Fu's annoyed look, Naruto quickly added, "See if you can keep up with me to my training ground," and with that Naruto took off running, leaving a slightly confused Fu gaping. Shaking the cobwebs off, the girl gave another sigh and took off running after the laughing blonde. Naruto gave a small grin, and laughed at the girl that was beginning to huff and puff behind him as they reached Naruto's training grounds. The boy knew he was fast even before he began his training for the academy, but he was quite surprised to see that he able to keep a good 10 feet away from Fu without using his speed technique. At the same time, Fu was once again surprised at the speed the blonde was able to pull off. He was moving speeds that some of the genin from Tokigakure could barely achieve and wasn't even coughing or breathing hard. However, that didn't stop the girl from bopping the boy in the head. "You baka, why did you have to go and run off for anyway?" Fu asked between breaths. "We could have just walked here, stupid." Naruto gave a sheepish smile and said, "I kind of wanted to see how I compared to someone my age. I've been training for the Ninja Academy and I wanted to see how much more work I need to do." "You've been training to go that fast, for how long?" Fu asked curiously. "For a few months, or so." "What?" Fu half yelled, "There is no way you can be that fast in a few months. You're about as fast some of the ninja from my village." The look on Naruto's face changed from sheepish to shocked, and then into a huge grin that threatened to rip his face in half. "Yes. All that training has paid off, yeah." He yelled at the top of his lungs, began to jump up and down. Fu stood there looking at the boy as he continued to yell and gave an annoyed sigh before a thought suddenly hit her. Wait a minute, he was surprised by his own speed. He's not aware of how fast he was going. "Naruto," she said to Blonde, but he continued to jumping and laughing. "Naruto," she said slightly louder. When he ignored her a second time, she raised her voice and almost yelled, "Naruto." The boy stopped what he was doing and gave another sheepish smile and said, "Sorry about that Fu-chan." The mint-haired girl just sighed and continued what she tried to do by say, "Naruto, how were you able to get that fast him?" The sheepish expression on his face changed to a more serious one, and put a hand to his chin and said, Sorry Fu-chan. But Oji-sama said that it's not wise for a future Hokage to explain his abilities to his enemies unless he plans on killing them later or something like that." Fu couldn't deny the logic behind those words. Her uncle said the exact same thing about her techniques, but this didn't satisfy her curiosity. "In that case then, how long did you have to train in order to obtain that kind of speed?" "Not very long, it only took me a few months to get that fast," Naruto replied, much to Fu's increasing amazement and curiosity. "Wait a minute, I thought you couldn't tell me how you got that fast." "Well, technically I didn't. You just asked me how long I trained, not how did I train, so that means that I could answer your question." Fu thought about it for a second and decided to word a question to where Naruto would show her some of the other things that he might have worked on. "So, Naruto, is there any other tricks you know?" Naruto had a pondering look before stating, "I have another thing I always wanted to try out, but it kind of requires two people for it to work." "All right then, tell me what you want me to do then," Fu asked, eager to see what it is. Okay, I need you to punch me," Naruto asked suddenly. "Nani?" Fu asked, a sweat drop beginning to form. "I need for you to hit me as hard as you can. It's been a while since I did this, so give me a chance to." "OWW," he said when Fu bopped him on the top of his head. "What the hell was that for?" the blonde asked, rubbing the spot on his head. Fu gave a smirk and replied, "You told me to hit you as hard as I can." "I meant when I am ready," the boy shouted back. Fu shrugged and replied, "You are the one who says that he wants to be an awesome ninja. It's not like the enemy is going to give you a chance to prepare before they attack, you know." The boy shot her an angry glare before preparing for his technique. Fu stifled a laugh looking at Naruto's face. It was scrunched up and his eyes looked like they were about to tear up. His overall stance and posture gave him the appearance that he was trying to crap out a duck from his butt. The blonde said through clenched teeth, "Oh okay, hit me." Fu couldn't help but make another joke. "Are you sure you want me to hit you? It looks like you are about to lay an egg." Just get on with it." The blonde growled and the mint-haired girl gave a shrug before walking to the constipated-looking boy and hitting him in the head again. The blonde staggered a bit but regained his balance quickly enough while Fu examined her hand. "That actually stung my hand a bit, it was almost like trying to punch a rock." The blonde gave a wide smile and said, "Ha, I managed to do on purpose this time, barely felt a thing." When Naruto began his victory dance, a tick mark appeared to the side of Fu's head. Naruto?" she said in an annoyed voice. The boy didn't have any further warning before a fist was in his stomach, knocking the breath out of him. Naruto fell to his knees and began to cough. After a few seconds he looked up and gave Fu an angered look. "What the hell was that for?" Fu gave a smirk and replied in a sarcastic tone, "Oh, I am sorry. I thought you were ready for me to hit you again." "Why you?" Naruto growled as he backed to his feet. After steadying himself, he shouted, "Let's see how you like." He threw a punch aimed for Fu's chest, but the tanned girl sidestepped it with ease. Naruto gave another growl and aimed a surprisingly fast side kick for the girl again. "Fast." Fu widened her eyes slightly and raised her hands to block the kick. The blow rammed into Fu's guard and the girl felt pain shot through her arms, and quickly backed away, with Naruto running quickly after her. Two more punches and another quick kick were aimed at the mint-haired girl, but she was able to either avoid them or deflect them with something resembling grace. Naruto on the other hand appeared to be little better than a brawler, punching and swiping in any direction he could. "He's pretty fast and strong, but he doesn't have a real style," Fu thought as she dunked a high kick aimed for her head. "My training with Uncle is really paying off. It almost like he's shouting out all of his moves to me." Fu gave a quick sweeping kick that connected and sent the boy face first into the grass. Fu looked at him and couldn't stop herself from giggling at his expense. Hearing this, Naruto quickly jumped off the ground and began to pat himself off. "Not bad, Naruto. Now let's see how well you do on the defensive." Fu appeared next to Naruto and rammed a punch into his chest, sending the blonde staggering back. Seizing the advantage, the Nanabi Jinrikiriki followed up with a jump kick. Naruto managed to recover quickly enough to dodge the attack, but as soon as Fu hit the ground she aimed a second kick at the blonde's side. It connected beautifully and the blonde was staring at the grass holding his stomach. "Ah, what's wrong, Naruto-kun? Having a bit of trouble with me?" The mint-haired girl smirked. At first it looked like Naruto was going to have a temper tantrum, but then the boy gave a wolfish smile. "Trouble? I'll show you some trouble, all right." Heh, heh. Then Fu shifted her position, readying herself for the blonde's next attack. When she saw what Naruto was doing she almost face-faulted. The boy began to stretch, doing a few squats, thrust and warm-up exercises. "What in the name of Kami are you doing? Are you really trying to remove the brick from your butt?" the girl asked as Naruto continued to stretch. "What does it look like I am doing? I am getting ready to use the technique that I was practicing." The blonde responded in a tone that seems to imply that it was obvious. The girl sighed, and was tempted to rush the boy but decided to humor him and wait. After a few more seconds of preparing, Naruto finally shifted into something resembling a ready position. "Congratulations, Fu. You're the very first person that I have ever tried this move on. I hope Shigeru-san doesn't get mad at me if I hit you too hard." Fu gave a smirk and replied, "Oh, don't worry about me, Naruto-kun. I am a fast healer." Naruto gave foxy smile and then shot towards her at an even faster pace than before. Fu's eyes could barely keep up with the blonde, and then her budding ninja instincts kicked in. She quickly raised her arms over her face. Just before Naruto's fist materialized in front of it, the mint-haired girl gave a hiss of pain when the punch connected with her arms. The force of the blow was powerful enough to knock the girl off her feet and had her rolling to a nearby tree. Fu quickly got up and began to strain her eyes looking for the blonde, who seemed to have disappeared. She felt a sharp pain go through her side and saw Naruto with a malicious gleam in his eye. His leg had connected firmly against Fu's ribs and the girl was sent tumbling farther into the forest at the edge of the Naruto's training ground. She came to a stop at the base of a tree, and no matter what she tried she couldn't pick herself from the ground. The girl began to hack and cough. That last blow literally pushed her breath out of her lungs. What the hell just happened? How did he get so fast? Fu-chan is having a little trouble breathing, is she? Fu raised her head from the ground to see Naruto at the entrance with a smirk that seemed a bit misplaced on his face. "Maybe my awesomeness is leaving her breathless?" Naruto said with emphasis on the last word. The mint-haired girl, who was just barely managing to get off the ground, couldn't help but sweat drop. This guy couldn't be menacing if he was 10 feet tall, had a huge neck, and could steal people's shadows. Wait, where did that thought come from? "Why don't you come out of the forest so we can finish this?" Naruto asked confidently. The boy was more than aware that the move that he learned would make him faster, but the boy almost couldn't believe exactly how fast he was moving now. Before he was a bit faster than Fu, but now he had her almost completely outclassed, so it felt natural for Naruto to be a bit cocky. He looked at the mint-haired girl in front of him as she got and felt a small twinge of guilt. She was perhaps the first friend that he made around his age, and he was beating her up over a kid blow. The boy felt a little worried that she might get upset about this whole thing and tell her uncle. Shigeru-san was a nice guy and he certainly didn't want to ruin things between them. However, Fu got up and shot a very defiant look at him and said, "Ha, you are about as awesome as a dog turd." For a second, neither said anything. They were both shocked about what she had said. Fu was surprised that such a thing would come out of her mouth. She was normally a bit more cultured and refined. Well, refined as a child could be. It felt kind of weird to say that kind of thing, but not in a bad way. Naruto was surprised by how childish the comment was. He was used to be insulted in the words being simple but harsh and cold. This was more like a kid trying to think of a comeback, and for some reason this made the blonde felt better for some reason. However, this was quickly swept away by anger when he realized what the girl just said. "What did you say about me, you moss-haired dung-eater?" he shouted. Fu was brought out of her thoughts by this statement and was slightly respond quickly. "I said you hit like a newborn fox kit." "Oh yeah? Well, tell me, how does this feel, dung-eater?" The blonde charged at Fu, who quickly climbed the tree behind her. "Hey, where ya going, ya big coward?" Naruto called out from the bottom. "Come down and fight like a man. First of all, if you want to be a ninja, then you use the environment to your advantage," Fu called from behind a curtain of leaves. "And second, I am a girl, you blonde doby." A few acorns appeared from out of the tree and hit Naruto right on the head. "Ow. Oh, suck it up. If it was a kunai, then you would have been killed." "That's it. I am coming up there." Naruto grabbed the tree and began to claw his way up. "Oh look. Whiskers can climb trees. I guess that means that he's evolved into an ape." This caused Naruto lose his grip of the trunk and fall and land on his butt. The blonde growled as Fu's laughter rang out from the top of the tree and began to try again. After 4 tries, a bruised and dirty Naruto managed to crawl his way to the top of the tree. "Okay, I am here. Now let's continue this fight." Naruto was rewarded with a silence and the gentle chirping of birds. "Okay, where the hell are you?" "Language, Naruto," a voice said from the bottom of the tree. "I hope you don't kiss your mom with that mouth." "Wait a minute, when did you get down there?" "Oh, I was bored and decided to go get a bite to eat while I waited for you to get up there." "I mean, really, what kind of ninja doesn't know how to climb trees?" If this is the standards of Konoha, then Taki is well on its way to becoming the next great nation. "That's it." Naruto jumped out of the tree and used his speed technique to launch himself at the mint-haired girl who had a huge smirk on her face. Naruto aimed an axe kick right at her head, but Fu's training kicked in again and alerted her of what the blonde was going to do and simply sidestepped the attack. She was about to retaliate when she heard a small crack sound. The girl turned around and saw a tree that had a long but thin gash running down the tree trunk. The tree itself didn't look that much worse for wear except for the bark of the tree cleanly removed from the trunk. While the overall effect wasn't that impressive to a trained ninja, to 2 6-year-olds it was amazing. Fu turned to Naruto, who was also looking at the cut in the tree with no mild amount of surprise. She turned back to tree and simply stared. Both the two children stood in silence while carefully examining the hole made by the whiskered blonde. After a few minutes, Fu broke the silence. Naruto, how in the name of Kami you did that?" The blonde shook his head and said, "I am not sure, but this just means that I am even more awesome than I thought." The boy finished with a grin, and a fist pumped into the air. The girl simply sighed and asked, "Okay then, Mr. Awesome. If you're so great, then see if you can do it again." "Fine, then I will." Naruto began the process of climbing a tree and failing at it. Fu gave what seemed like her 100th sigh. "This is going to take a while." Meanwhile, a man dressed in a police uniform was preparing to enjoy his lunch when a spiral of leaves and smoke appeared in front of him. The man didn't even look up from his meal when he said, "Hello, Shisui-san. I trust that the mission was a success." Shisui Uchiha gave a bow and dropped to one knee and gave his report. "Fugaku Dono. The Taki Nin was put under a trance as commanded. The orders have been applied and tomorrow, he will go and fulfill his duties." Fugaku Uchiha looked up from his meal and gave a small smile that looked amazingly similar to a smirk. "Excellent work, Shisui. I trust that no one is the wiser of the events." "No, sir, I erased the memory of my assault from both men and anyone who might have possibly known what had happened." The Uchiha clan head nodded and continued with his meal. After a few seconds of testing Shisui patience, Fugaku said in very calm voice, "Did you manage to find out who the leak was in our operation?" The younger man shook his head and replied, "No sir, I haven't been able to get any leads on who is doing it, but I do have a few suspects." After viewing Fugaku's inquiring stare, the man continued, "There is Ryu Uchiha, and a few others of the outcasts family." Fugaku frowned but nodded. "Those outcasts have been a thorn in the side of the real Uchiha for too long. If it wasn't for that blasted student of the Yondaime, we could have slaughtered those bastards." Shisui nodded in complete agreement. Ever since that outcast brat gave the Yondaime's student his Sharingan, the man kept in close contact with the outcasts. If something was to happen to them, he would be the first to know. "Also, I have reason to suspect that someone from your household may be working for the Hokage," Shisui continued quietly. Fugaku's bore down on his subordinate. His Sharingan was active and spinning in anger. "You dare think that one of my household would betray the clan?" His words retained the same volume they had before, but the tone contained a very strong hint of danger, killing intent slowly beginning to leak. "Yes, sir, with all due respect, it is possible for a member of your family to be behind this leak. Mikoto maintains close relations with her kin and voices her dissent, and Itachi is an Anbu and has to keep close contact with the Hokage. It's not impossible." For almost a full minute the man was stared down by Uchiha clan head. A thin film of sweat begins to rise on Shisui's brow. Finally, Fugaku said, "Very well then, keep a close eye on the outcast family and on my son. I'll deal with my wife personally." "Very well, sire, I'll get right on it." With that, Shisui shunshin away, without giving off a puff of smoke or a whirlwind of leaves. Fugaku continued to stare at the spot where Shisui was before moving back to his meal. "I may have to speed up my plans. I can only hope the agents abroad complete their mission. Soon Konoha, very soon, you'll be in the hands of your rightful owners." It was early evening as Fu and Naruto limped down the streets of Konoha. Many people had already decided to return to their homes for the day, so Naruto decided to take the main roads to improve time. The two Jinrikariki were exhausted. They spent the entire day fighting and training with each other. Naruto's pants were ripped in several different places and his shirt was almost ruined beyond repair. The boy retained a few bruises on his faces, but they were slowly fading away. Fu wasn't much better. The clothes she brought with her were suited to more formal occasions. Now they were ruined and caked with more stains than a copy of Icha Paradise. "I am sorry about this, my brother forced me to write that. He's my beta of sorts." Her hair was a mess with all sort of things crawling through it. "Hey Fu-chan," Naruto said tiredly, "you want to grab a quick bite to eat before we go back to the Hokage tower?" The mint-haired girl gave a strained grunt that resembled a yes, and the two made their way to Ichiraku Ramen. The sweet smell of ramen reached Naruto's nose and moved at such a speed that it almost appeared he teleported. 3 miso ramen, and keep the water hot, Tuchi Oji-san. "Hey, Naruto-kun. It's nice to see you too." "I am fine and dandy, thank you," Ayame said from behind the counter. "Heh, sorry about that, Ayame-chan," Naruto said sheepishly, giving his signature smile with his hand scratching the back of his head. "Are you sure that I am the one you want to be apologizing to, Naruto-kun?" she replied, pointing directly behind him. The blonde turned around and saw Fu with a glare in her orange eyes. A small tick mark won her head. "Hello, Naruto-kun," she said with a tone that made Naruto sweat. Hey Fu-chan, what's with that look?" Naruto asked with a nervous smile. "Oh, nothing, Naruto-kun," she said, getting closer much to Naruto's concern. Fu-chan, what are you OWWH? The boy said as a fist inserted itself into his head. Ayame saw this from behind the counter and laughed at the misfortune of the blonde. The blonde grumbled about annoying girls when Fu began to giggle too. However, this couldn't keep the smile off the boy's face. And done. Before I close this chapter, I want everyone to know this right now. Madara Uchiha is not going to be appearing in this series no matter what. The reason behind this is simplistic. I hate him. I hate him and the entire Uchiha clan for the most part. This clan is perhaps the most overpowered group of any kind I have ever seen in manga, anime, video games. At first I thought they were cool and I was willing to accept most things from this clan. The Sharingan, the Manekyo Sharingan, and hell even the E.M.S. However, when I saw Izanagi, that's where I drew the line. Madara Uchiha has finally reached the realms of villains like Aizen. They were cool at first, and then they pull some crap out of their asses and become nothing less than Godzilla meets King Kong in Superman's bedroom. I hated pain, and now Madara wants to steal his eye and go all Rakudo Senin. That is where I cross the line. I already suspect how Madara is going to die, and it's going to be just as lame as when Ichigo fought Aizen for the last time. Oh well, just know Madara is not going to be alive in this. He's dead, buried in worm shit. It was Fu's next to last day in Konoha, and the two decide that they were going to spend the day training with each other. After a quick greeting to Shigeru and the Hokage, the pair was gunning through the alleyways of Konoha. Eager to get to Naruto's training grounds, the impromptu spar from the previous day has left the two children with the urge to see who would win in an actual fight. The two were running through the forest near the training area when they heard the sounds of a fight going on. "Who is that?" Fu asked the blonde. "Does anyone else use your training grounds?" "Not that I know of. I am the only one that knows about this place," the boy responded. The two were curious to see what was happening and ran to see the clearing to see two kids not that much older than they were fighting. Stopping Naruto from running out and interrupting the fight, Fu gave him the sign to shush. She led him into the bushes and made him watch the other kids practice. The fight was already towards the end. The youngest-looking one was on the ground struggling to keep the other child from breaking through his meager defenses. A kid who looked to be about Naruto and Fu's age was on the ground rubbing his head. He had wavy silver hair that was tied into a tight rat tail, allowing one to see the violent rectangular markings on his cheeks. His dark brown eyes were closed in pain. He wore a dark brown t-shirt under a blue tank top. A broken bow staff was left on the ground next to him, and if the raw red marks on his hand were indications, he wasn't very used to a weapon. OWW, the boy said as he lay on the ground in pain, you didn't have to hit me that hard. Itoko-san. Itoko is Japanese for cousin, I think. Maybe that should teach you not to pick a fight with someone better than you. The girl replied, offering the boy a hand. She had brown hair that was tied into a bun and her brown eyes were eyeing her cousin with a hint of amusement. She wore a pink blouse and green pants. In her hands was a brown bow staff that she was lazily leaning on. The boy gave a loud grumble but grabbed the girl's hand and was pulled up. The only reason you won was because you were in the academy, the boy said, catching Naruto's attention. So that girl goes to the academy. Damn, I wish I got to see her fight some more. That's probably why you should try to spar with me. After all, you fighting me is like an academy student trying to fight a chunin. It's almost impossible to win, the girl told the silver-haired boy. Bah, just wait until I get into the academy, then I would be able to kick your ass like a snap. The boy shouted loudly before he quickly covered his mouth. However, the damage appeared to have already been done and the girl gained an evil grin on her face. Such a naughty word. I wonder what Oba-san would think if I were to tell her that her son was cussing, she mused sweetly, her grin stretched on her face. Now, Itoko, you wouldn't tell Ka-san, would you? He asked, his voice filled with horror. Well, I don't know. I'm still deciding on whether to tell her that you were here instead of at my Otis shop, she thought out loud, causing the boy to panic even further. But then again, only a heartless, mean, evil person would do something like that, causing the boy to relax before the bun-haired girl suddenly sprang off towards town, leaving the boy confused. Where are you going? The boy called out to the girl as she ran through the forest. I am going to tell your Ka-san, she called back. I thought you said only a heartless, evil person would tell Oka-san. The boy cried. His cousin cackled and replied, I never said I wasn't one. The boy yelped, running after her. How weird. Well, let's get to training. Fu-chan? The blonde asked his companion, only to see that she was gone. Fu-chan? Naruto noticed that his friend was gone. Where did she go? Meanwhile, a little farther from where Naruto was, Fu was talking to the silver-haired child. HMMPH. I don't need your help. Just watch where you are going next time, will you? The boy asked gruffly as he began to pick himself from the ground. First, you ran into me, and second, if you're not careful your cousin is going to tell your mother and she doesn't sound like the type to forgive that easily, Fu told the boy calmly, causing the boy to become panicky again. Fu-chan. Naruto called out from the forest, you should go and see if you can beat your cousin to your mother. My friend is looking for me, the celadon-haired girl continued. The silver-haired girl scoffed, fine, just make sure you watch where you are going next time. Watching him go, Fu simply shook her head and asked, now, where did that blonde idiot go to? A yell from the direction that the other boy went gave the girl a general idea. Naruto yelled, grabbing the boy's shirt. Sensing an escalation to this confrontation, Fu appeared next to Naruto and said, let him go, Naruto. But he was the one that started it, Naruto whined. Even so, you aren't exactly making friends with that kind of attitude, Fu responded dryly. The blonde gave a grumble but let go of the silver-haired boy's shirt. I am sorry about my friend here. The idiot tends to get overexcited easily. Fu apologized, ignoring Naruto's complaints behind her. The silver-haired boy scoffed and simply replied, fine, just make sure the brat knows not to do again. Why ought to? Oni-san. All three children turned around to see a girl with a large bundle of clothes in her arms running through the forest. Soden, what do you want? The boy said irritably. The girl had dark brown hair that seemed to defy gravity. One could tell whether or not she had the same bandage-like markings that her brother had due to the pile of clothes in the way. However, one could still see her eyes, which were a deep brown that was almost black in color. Oni-san. Ka-san wants to know where you are and why you aren't helping us with the store. Her voice had a natural drawl, her tone almost uncaring. HMMPH. I don't see why I should help. I am a man and a future Anbu commander. I need to be out training, not stuck in some old store selling shirts to old ladies. Oni-san, if you wanted to go to the park, you have to ask Ka-san for permission, she replied flatly, much to her brother's annoyance. Excuse me, but who are you? Fu asked. The girl turned and seemed to notice Naruto and Fu standing there for the first time. Oh, hello. Welcome to Higarashi's clothing store, may I help you? She said, causing both children to sweat drop. The boy's fist in the back of her head caused the brown-haired girl to drop the clothes she was carrying. Baka. We aren't even in the store, why are you introducing yourself like that? Speaking of which, why are you running around the forest carrying those clothes? Ka-san says that we are to say that to all the prospective customers, the girl replied. She was already on the ground picking the clothes from the ground. You might want to run, Oni-san. Ka-san is going to kill you when she gets here. Wait, how does she know we're in the forest? Because Tenten told her, his sister replied flatly. Juden. Get over here now. An angry voice filled the alleyway, causing the entire group to turn towards the noises, the two innocent bystanders to tense up and the boy to shiver in fear. Looks like Ka-san is out to get you, Oni-san. Oni-san? It was then that Fu and Naruto noticed that the now-named Juden was missing. Almost as soon as Juden disappeared, a woman in an apron, brown long-sleeve shirt and black pants was stomping towards them. The new woman was rather small for an adult. In fact, she looked like she was barely out of her teen years. She had long dark brown hair that went down to her knees. Like her son, she also had bandage markings on her face, although hers were smaller. Her eyes were about as brown as her daughter's and had a mother's rage behind them. Juden, when I get my hands on you, I am going to. Soden, who are these people? The woman asked her daughter. The two kids' sweat dropped at the abrupt change in tone while the now-named Soden replied, some friends of Juden. He was talking to them before he ran off. The woman turned towards the two and suddenly the children felt the scrutinizing glare of a mother for the first time. Her eyes examined the two but seemed to hang on Naruto the longest, causing the boy to further tense up. After a few minutes the woman began to speak again. I have decided my course of action, the mother said, causing the two friends to be confused and her daughter to raise an eyebrow. Since Juden isn't here to help with the store, as his friends, it's up to you to pick up the slack that you were causing him to create, she told the group, confusing Naruto and Fu even more and earning an almost inaudible sigh from her daughter. Fu was the first to recover from her confusion and asked, excuse me ma'am, but what do you mean pick up the slack? Juden was supposed to be helping us with the store, but like his lazy-ass father he ran off. Since you two are friends with him, distracted him from his work, and allowed him to escape, you will be working for me and doing the work that he was supposed to be. She finished this with a smile and appeared to be giving herself a pat on the back for the idea. Wait a minute. Naruto yelled, we don't even know your kid lady, we were just passing through when he ran into me. Actually, you ran into him, Fu pointed out. Whatever. The point is we aren't friends with your kid, or do we even know him? The woman stared at the boy for a moment, before walking away. Let's go, Soden, I don't want you to be hanging around such scum. Hey, wait a minute, who are you calling scum, lady? The blonde growled. You little gaki, you are willing to call a person a friend when it suits you, but when the hard times come you claim not to know him. A friend of mine would be rolling in his grave right now if he were to see the new generation acting this way. She sighed and continued to walk away with Soden giving a slightly apologetic look towards them. Naruto growled in rage. The boy had been called many things in his life. Demon, monster, brat, or variations. He has been accused of doing things he wasn't even involved in. However, this was the very first time someone has ever called him scum and accused him of betraying a friend. That for some reason bothered him more than anything else, and he wasn't about. You don't know a thing about me, lady. I would never betray a friend. I was telling the truth. I don't know your son, and I am not friends with that jerk. The women paused for just a moment before turning around and staring deep into the boy's eyes. Naruto was slightly frightened by the intense look on her face but glared hard into the woman's brown eyes. Meanwhile, Fu and Soden stared at the two, waiting to see what happened. Finally the woman broke into a grin. So you are willing to do anything for a friend, right? The woman said, her eyes still focused on Naruto's. Yeah, I would do anything for a friend. You are willing to climb mountains, crawl through swamps, and battle monsters from other worlds for your friend? Her eyes were now beginning to shine an evil shine. I would be willing to do anything for a friend. I would smash the mountains into bits, stomp through swamps, and kick those monsters' asses. The boy declared, not noticing that Fu had a small smile on her face. The woman did, but decided not to make a comment towards it. So you will be helping me with the store then, right? She smiled mischievously. Yeah, of course, I would. Hey, wait a minute, too late. As your friend, I need help, and you just said that you would help me unless you turn your back on your promises, and all that crap you just said was just that. Crap. The boy gave an angry growl and then responded, I always keep my word. Besides, how are we friends when I don't even know you? Name's Higurashi-san. You may refer to me as Higurashi-sama or Higurashi-dono, and yours is Gaki or Baka, right? The woman asked quickly, playing right into her hand. The blonde immediately corrected her. My name's Naruto, not Gaki. The boy responded angrily. Well, very nice to meet you, Naruto-san. Now that we know each other, let's be friends, and as friends you are obligated to help me. She said all of this so fast that it took a few moments for the blonde to register the words she said. Wait a minute, what just happened? Fu asked, reminding everyone that she was there. You two just volunteered to help me with my store, and because I am such a good person, I'll even treat you out to eat if you do a good job. At this point the only thing the two could do was nod. They were baffled by the woman who somehow managed to hogtie them into helping out with her store. As the woman walked by, Soden gave a sympathetic look to the blonde. Her mother had a way of manipulating people to do what she wanted. It almost seemed like she had a bloodline at times. As the group walked out the alleyway, Higurashi thought to herself, seems like the runt got her personality. She was the only girl I could trick like that. Reminiscing at the memory of the loud red-haired woman caused a small smile to grow on her face. I will do the job that those two other pathetic no-good bastards should have been doing. So were you a ninja, Higurashi-san? Fu asked the elder Higurashi between bites of ramen. Fu and Naruto didn't actually do that much work on the store. It was mainly some nameless genins that helped out. What the two did do, however, was help give the new store a paint job for the interior. A few of the genin that were helping out tried to give Naruto some trouble, but the elder Higurashi quickly stepped in and punished the two with more work. During the job, Fu and Naruto were properly introduced to Soden and her cousin Tenten Higurashi, who just completed the first year in the academy. A few hours past noon, the shop was finished and Higurashi-san took everyone out to eat. With enough whining, Naruto was able to convince everyone to go to Ichiraku's ramen. Hi, I was part of a rather famous team back in the day. I was one of the best medic nin of the time. Higurashi bragged, her voice full of reminiscence. One time, I was captured and was tortured for information by some enemy nin. Really, how did you manage to escape? Naruto asked with excitement. Higurashi was really turning out to be a rather cool person, for a girl. My teammates rescued me, but I lost one of my teammates that day, she answered, her voice more solemn, causing the mood to shift slightly. Anyway, Tenten-san, I heard that you were in the academy. Naruto asked the bun-haired girl, attempting to change the subject, who gained a large grin. Yeah, we didn't do that much physical stuff, but I am one of the best girls in the class, she said proudly. But you said that all the other girls are fangirls, and the only other one that could rival you was that mean chick, Neji Hyuga. Soden commented, her voice slightly muffled by the food going down her throat. Her face was hidden in her bowl as she continued to shovel food in at a rate that surprised even Naruto. Don't talk with your mouth full, Soden-chan, Higurashi scolded, and she has a point, Tenten-chan. You do complain that most of the girls in your class are fangirls, so to say that you're the best isn't actually saying that much. What's a fangirl? Fu asked Tenten, who shook her head. It's not a person, but rather a concept or philosophy. It's the darkest, most shameful part of all kunoichi. It causes the most serious female to become obsessed with boys, to the point where you become absolutely pathetic. She spat out the word like a curse. Fu gasped while the elder Higurashi nodded solemnly. This obsession causes a kunoichi to neglect everything that's beneficial, such as training, to try and impress the boy of their affections. I should know at one point. I am sad to say. I was one of them. No way. How could you have been a fangirl? Naruto asked, finishing slurping his noodles, much to the pleasure of Fu, who was sitting next to him. When you're young, common sense doesn't exist. You just try to get to the point of maximum satisfaction. It doesn't matter whether or not it's good for you, Higurashi commented. People do stupid things because they want to be satisfied. To hell with the consequences, isn't that right, Juden-kun? The group turned around to see white-haired boy attempting to leave the stand. He had a thin film of sweat, and a nervous shine in his brown eyes. Turning around, he gave a big smile to his mother, who hadn't even turned around, and said, Yes, Ka-sama, I totally agree. So you agree that people who focus only on their own satisfaction get punished in the long run, isn't that right, Juden-kun? She continued, her tone slowly getting more ominous. The temperature of the small stand was beginning to cool. In the back room, Tucci was surprised to see that the fresh ramen bowls he made were beginning to freeze. Why yes, Ka-sama. Higurashi suddenly turned around and glared directly into the boy's eyes, causing him to take a step back in reaction. Good, so you are aware that you will be punished accordingly for ditching your job and forcing your friends to work for you. Juden was confused. What friends are you talking about, Ka-sama? Hige-kun, Whisker, I think, and Marimo-chan, Mossball. You were talking to them in the forest, so I assume that they're your friends. Higurashi pointed to Naruto and Fu, who were annoyed by their new nicknames. You are that jerk who ran into me in the forest. Juden yelled, pointing at the blonde, who responded by saying, You are the one who ran into me. Regardless, Juden, you will be suffering for your decision when we get home, Higurashi said with a tone that dared the silver-haired boy to argue. Yes, Ka-sama, the boy said quietly. Anyway, let's continue with our meal, everyone, the woman said, turning away from the boy back to her meal. Hey, what about me, Ka-san? Don't I get to eat some ramen? Juden asked, his tone almost pleading, actually causing a giggle from his siblings and the two children. No. This meal is for those of us who actually worked today, and to celebrate a job well done. If you had worked today, then maybe I would have bought something for you. I told you that you would be suffering when we got home. You'll be suffering of an empty stomach. The elder Higurashi told her son, causing the boy to pout. The other children laughed at his misfortune and continued to enjoy their meals, much to Juden's displeasure. So in exchange for the 2 million Ryu loan that Konoha Treasury gives, the Takigakure Village Council and I have agreed to repay the village plus a 5% interest rate, Shigeru concluded before sitting down. The Hokage nodded in consideration. He had to admit that with Shigeru's plan, Takigakure could seriously rise back into contention amongst the major elemental villages. I see. Would Takigakure be willing to sign a pledge of alliance in exchange for double the money at a fourth of the interest? Sarutobi asked. Of course it would be wise to try and get an ally out of Takigakure. The village was the fastest growing village in the elemental nations. With many of the still roaming clans or those displaced by the bloodline purge.
Going to the village, tensions were beginning to rise between Konoha and Sunagakure, its only ally. Having Takigakure as an ally would help secure some of Konoha's defenses against enemies. Not only that, a rumor was beginning to spread that his wayward student had created a hidden village in the Ta-no-Kuni, land of rice paddies. The idea that his student was amassing an army made creating alliances out of neighboring countries a major consideration.
Double the money would certainly sweeten the deal, Hokage-sama, Shigeru said smoothly. Not, while a chibi version of him danced in a pile of money. We would strongly agree to an alliance if this was the case. A smile adorns the Hokage's face, and held out his hand to Shigeru. Shigeru-sama, I hope this agreement will foster relations between our two villages. Shigeru smiled and grabbed the offered hand. I agree, Hokage-sama. Senji smiled as he watched the two leaders shake hands. This was truly the first step in Takigakure rising to secure its place in the world. I wonder where Masario is. The man thought idly. The afternoon sun was beginning to dive beyond the horizon. Fu and Naruto were sitting under the shade of a tree. After being dismissed by Higurashi with the promise to visit, the two went off to train for the day. It was roughly 2 when they left the Higurashis and went to Naruto's training ground. Now, the sky was turning a variety of different colors as the two once again adorned the marks from another day's training. They were sitting under one of the many trees in the area, licking the many injuries they managed to give each other. While their bodies were already healing, the two were still very tired and their clothes were worse for wear. That was fun, Naruto-kun, Fu breathed. She was having a hard time catching her breath. The boy sitting next to her had freakish stamina. She heard from her uncle that the being a Jinrikariki meant that she would have more stamina and energy than most other kids her age, yet, Naruto seemed not only able to match her stamina but was able to actually outlast her. She could only imagine the type of stamina that the boy would possess if he was a demon container like she was. The boy gave another one of his grins that was beginning to really grow on the girl, and replied, It was fun, Fu-chan. If we had more time, maybe you might be able to beat me. Fu punched the blonde in shoulder and responded, Beat me, huh? Last time I checked, I was the one making you look like a fool. The only time you were able to touch me was when you were using that speed technique of yours, and even then I still was able to dodge most of you punches. HMMPH, just wait until I master my sword windblade leg thing, Rankyaku for those who don't know. I'd like to see you dodge that. Let me think. You have to climb up a tree to use your sword windblade leg thing as you like to call it, and it doesn't seem to be that strong either. Well, you still can break through my awesome body hardening technique. The boy boasted only for Fu to respond. Your body hardening technique takes 5 minutes to work and you can't move while you are using it, even if I can't punch you. I bet if someone was to take a kunai and stab you it wouldn't be able to stop it. That's not true, it did stop a kunai before. The boy's words seemed to wander off, causing the Fu to turn and look at her friend. The look on his face seemed to be one of phantom fear. His hand was slowly rising to his chest. It was almost like the boy was remembering a rather horrifying memory. Naruto. The girl shouted, hitting the boy in the head. Instantly the boy snapped awake. His eyes flickered before they returned to normal, if not more strained than usual. Sorry about that, random flashback, the boy said with a forced smile, rubbing his head sheepishly. Anyway, have you thought about naming any of those techniques of yours? Fu asked cautiously, attempting to move past that part of the conversation. She wasn't much of a people person and didn't really know who to react to others' problems, so she just left him be. Huh, why do you ask? The girl sighed and answered, From what I can see, the techniques that you were using are of your own creation, thus it's your right to name them. What do you mean? I can't just think of a name on the spot, the blonde yelled, causing Fu to simply shrug. I am not saying do it now, just do it before someone else does it for you. Okay, then how about Tetsukurata, iron body, I think, Naruto asked. You mean that body technique of yours? Fu asked Naruto, who nodded. No, it takes too much of a mouthful. Kawahagain, steel skin, I think. Fu shook her head in opposition. Naruto stopped and thought really hard on what he wanted his first technique's name was going to be, and then he was struck with inspiration. How about Tekai, iron mass? Naruto asked. Fu gained a thoughtful look before saying, That was probably the worst name that you came up with yet. Where the hell did you get it? Why thank you, Fu-chan. This name is perfect, Naruto responded sarcastically. Anyway, we should be heading back, Hige-kun? Fu asked, standing up and stretching. The blonde sighed and got up from the ground, and the two began to walk towards the village. You know, Fu-chan, I'll miss you when you leave tomorrow, Naruto said quietly. Fu glanced at the boy and gave a smirk. AWH, you like me. You'd figured that beating I just gave you would pretty happy I am leaving tomorrow. Noticing that the normally hot-headed boy wasn't responding to the teasing, Fu's smirk changed to a soft smile and she said, we can still be friends, Naruto-kun. I know, it's just that I didn't have any friends before I met you. To be honest, I didn't really have any friends before I met you either. Everyone was afraid of me. They looked at me like I was about to blow up or something. It was lonely. Her voice trailed off. Her eyes went from the path ahead to the top of the trees. However, Naruto seemed to ignore it and commented, I know how you feel, except people of the village keep giving me those glares like they want me to just burst into flames. The blonde was interrupted when Fu suddenly dragged Naruto to the ground, her face coming centimeters from his. What the hell was that for? Naruto cried out, a blush creeping onto his face. Shut up, she whispered angrily. She rolled off of Naruto, allowing him to see a few kunai and shuriken littering the area where the two of them were. What the? Fu grabbed the boy's face, ignoring the red that was building from skin contact on the blonde's face, and made a shush motion with her hand. Quiet, we need to get out of the forest and into the village. Someone is trying to kill us out here, she whispered frantically. What? Shush. Fu yelled softly, we need to stay low and not draw any attention to ourselves. Why can't we just run? Naruto asked, slightly confused, because this guy is obviously a ninja. Those weapons came from the treetops, so he has the high advantage. If we were to run, he could easily find us and put a kunai through both our heads, got it? Naruto nodded his head and Fu rolled off of him and crouched low. And began to crawl forward, her eyes focused more on the trees than on the ground. Into the heavy brush and bushes, the blonde quickly followed suit, ignoring the rocks and branches that littered the floor of the forest. As the two crawled, they could hear rustling of the trees above them. Every time they would hear the leaves begin to shake above them, the two would come to a complete stop. For a second, the two would stop breathing and try to stay as quiet as possible until the leaves began shake, signifying the threat has passed. After about a minute of crawling, the mouth of the forest was in reach and the two decided to make a run for it. They were only seconds away from the end of the forest before a small black ball was tossed in front of the two. Fu's eyes widened when the ball burst into smoke. Scramble, he's coming after us. Fu ran forward at full speed and didn't stop until she ran into something. HMMH, are you alright, little girl? Looks like you ran into me. Are you in a hurry? The man asked, pulling Fu to her feet. The man had dark eyes with long tear troughs extending from them. His black hair was pulled back in a ponytail with some of it used to frame his face. He was wearing the standard uniform of the Konoha military police, and looked to be just getting off of patrol. What? Where is Naruto? Fu asked, looking around. The mont's eyebrow rose slightly after hearing that name. Everyone in the Anbu Black Ops had to have some kind of knowledge of the boy. It had become a sort of rite to passage for new Anbu to protect Naruto and keep an eye on him during the anniversary of the Kyuubi attack. If a new Anbu did nothing to stop the boy from being attacked, they were expelled from the program, and the man had to agree with that. If you weren't willing to save an innocent boy from mobs, it showed a lack of faith of the Yondaime's expertise. A lack of faith in the Yondaime meant that one had a lack of faith in the Hokage's wishes and orders, and showed that one wasn't qualified to obey the Hokage's orders when it became absolutely necessary. You know Naruto Uzumaki? The man asked, his black eyes piercing into Fu's orange ones. Fu took a step back and answered, yeah, I know Naruto. We were training in the forest before some ninja attacked us. The girl snapped into attention when she realized that the boy was still in the forest. Damn, I have to go back, the girl shouted as she turned to run into the forest before being stopped by the man she bumped into. I'll go, he said simply and ran off towards the forest. Fu stood there incredulously before shaking her head and running into the forest. Meanwhile, Naruto was confronted by the ninja that was attacking him. Why are you going after Fu-chan and me? The boy shouted, staring at the impassive Taki nin poised in front of him. He recognized the ninja from WHN. He and Fu meet up in the Hokage Tower. The man was Shigeru's bodyguard. I thought that you were her bodyguard, that it was your duty to protect her. The man gave the boy a steel glare before striking him again, sending the blonde farther away from Fu and farther into the forest. Naruto winced at the pain coursing through his head, cursing the fact that he couldn't use his Tekai ability to its fullest. Then his attacker's voice called out from the forest. You dare accuse me of not living up to my duty? You don't have the right to insult me, boy. The boy then decided that this man was insane and that he had to find Fu and get away from him into the Hokage Tower, so that Gigi or Shigeru could protect her. Hoping to distract him while he ran to Fu, he called out, "Answer me. Why are you trying to kill Fu-chan? Her uncle will get you if he find out about this." Upon mentioning Shigeru, the tacky nin gave a mocking scoff before yelling, "Who said I am trying to kill Fu-sama, boy?" This caused Naruto to pause for a second, before asking in a slightly shaky voice, "Then who are you trying to kill?" Once again the Mons Rai laugh filled the forest, and Naruto was beginning to flash back towards the attack months ago on the people trying to kill him, how the man stabbed him with his kunai. "No," the boy mumbled, "you are here to kill me, aren't you?" The man gave another evil chuckle that only served to confirm his thoughts, and a chill ran through the blonde's spine, and the final horse finishes the race. "WWY?" The boy breathed out, fear grasping at his throat. "Since I am going to kill you, boy, might as well indulge your curiosity. A few of the civilians, and by few I mean enough to start a separate village worth of people, have a grievance against you. After a few failed attempts, by both civilians and shinobi, the people of this village decided to devote money to an outside source." The man shouted into the forest, hoping to get some kind of reading on him. The boy was careful to keep his whimpering to a minimum, as he sought to find a way out of the area without alerting the tacky nin. "Hey boy, do you want to know why all those people paid me to take you out?" The man called out. He jumped into a tree to have a better vantage point. He knew the blonde would unknowingly give out his location after hearing what he was about to say. Meanwhile, Naruto continued to sneak towards the entrance of the forest in hopes of escaping the man.
"The reason why all those people hate, why they all despise your existence, it's because you and Fu-sama have more in common than either of you realize. Like how Fu is a demon container, a Jinrichiriki, you are also one. You are the vessel of the Kyuubi no Kitsune." The world seemed to come to a screeching halt, almost as if nature itself was interested in Naruto's reaction to the news.
"I am the vessel of the Kyuubi. I thought that the Yondaime killed it," Naruto thought out loud. His mind went blank as every thought he ever had towards the village, and the Hokage's was being put into question. The Yondaime couldn't kill the Kyuubi, so instead he decides to seal the fox inside of a nameless orphan, that child being you. The ninja's voice was laced in amusement as he could sense the turmoil that was going through the boy. The blonde was beginning to cry and his tears were going to lead the tacky nin right to him. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? He has to be lying. Hokage Gigi would have told me, right? Naruto thought, his whimpers growing louder and louder, drawing the tacky nin closer and closer. When the boy was in sight, the ninja gained an evil smirk. "Stupid little Gaki, with your death Tokigakure will rise and Konoha will be left without a weapon. Time to die, demon fox." Sweden. Mizu no Yeba. Water release. Blade of water.
The tacky nin spat out a stream of water that formed into a sword in his hand. With a mighty leap, the shinobi launched himself towards the blonde, who was frozen in fear and still lost in his thoughts. Before the ninja's sword could pierce the boy, he pushed out of the way by Fu. The ninja stumbled a bit, recovered, and glared at the Nanabi Jinrichiriki. "Fu-sama, move out of the way."
Fu and Naruto were lying on the ground again. Fu quickly stood up and yelled, "Masario-san. What the hell are you doing? Why are you attacking Naruto-kun?" The man gave a scoff and replied, "I am doing my duty to Tokigakure and your uncle. This boy's death will the first step in the ascension of our village." "What the hell are you talking about? My Oji-sama would never tell you to kill him," the girl cried. "What I am about to do is kill Konoha's so-called secret weapon, that how all villages train and raise their Jinrichiriki." This boy was on the fast track to being a loyal little soldier. By killing the boy, I ruined the Hokage's plans and saved this boy from a life of continuous torment, just for the appeasement of an uncaring village. I am helping both parties with my actions." Masario said calmly, his stare unnerving the two children, or rather Fu. Naruto was still on the ground, whimpering to himself. "Naruto, you got to get it together. I need your help if we're going to get out of this." "Naruto." Fu called to the boy, who just looked at her, his eyes staring intently at her. "Just leave me, Fu-chan. Everyone in the village thinks I am a monster. I have the Kyuubi in me. I killed all those people." Naruto was able to finish when Fu gave him a rough kick in his side. "What the fuck are you talking about?" Fu yelled angrily. Before Naruto was able to answer, Fu kicked him again. "Did you forget what we talked about the first day I was here, Naruto?" "It's a flashback." Naruto gave a small sigh, and put on his best face. "Don't worry about all right, Fu-chan. They won't bother you, they do that for everyone." Fu misinterpreted Naruto's sigh and replied angrily, "Oh yeah, how come they don't do that to you or any other kid? Why are they doing it to me?" The whiskered blonde gave a confused look to Fu and asked, "What makes you think that they are talking about you?" "Because I am a Jinrichiriki, a container. Everyone in my village is afraid of me. Everyone here knows it and hates me." Don't worry about it, Fu-chan," he said with a smile. "I might not be a container like you are, but I am your friend, right?" Fu couldn't believe what Naruto said. All of Tokigakure knew that she was the container of the third most powerful Biju and were afraid to come anywhere near her, even though she has not made any attempts at hurting any of them. Naruto on the other hand simply didn't seem to care if she was a container even though he isn't one. Why yeah, Naruto-kun, we are friends, she said softly, trying to hide the smile on her face. The flashback is over. Huzzah, I remember someone telling me something that sounded like, it doesn't matter if you're a container, but we're still friends, right? Naruto's whimpering came to an end as his glassy blue eyes stared into Fu's unwavering orange. As touching as this moment is, I need you to stand you aside, Fu-sama, or I would be forced to dispose of you and the boy. Mizuryu's voice broke the connection and Fu turned towards her former bodyguard. There is no way that I will allow you to hurt my friends without a fight, Naruto, and I can handle some 2-bit Jonin, Fu yelled. Her voice bring back some of Naruto's confidence as he began to stand up. Why yeah, well kick your ass, you old piece of shit, Naruto added shakily. Mizuryu's eyes went from Fu to Naruto back to Fu again, before sighing, if you two feel so strongly about this, then I suppose Tokigakure could still obtain its rightful spot. For a moment, the two Jinrikurikus guard lower slightly. Without its weapon, the man said, his steel eyes glaring at the two containers, he pounced, becoming a blur to both children. Naruto was about to open his mouth to ask Fu where you went when a sharp pain coursed through his side as both were knocked in opposite directions by Mizuryou. Naruto landed roughly in a bush while Fu slammed into a tree, then hit the ground in a heap. Mizuryou snorted and commented, little brats think you could handle a Jonin of all things. You twerps haven't even been in the academy or properly trained yet. What makes you think that you could beat me? Sighing, he turns to Naruto and says, you know this is all your fault, right boy? If it wasn't for you, the girl wouldn't have to die. He's right, if it wasn't for me, Fu-chan would be here, she wouldn't die. Naruto thought, as he watched the shinobi turn towards the girl. He was going to give up when the conversation he had with Higurashi came back into his head. So you are willing to do anything for a friend, right? Higurashi asked, her eyes still focused on Naruto's. Yeah, I would do anything for a friend. You are willing to climb mountains, crawl through swamps, and battle monsters from other worlds for your friend? Her eyes were now beginning to shine an evil shine. I would be willing to do anything for a friend. I would smash the mountains into bits, stomp through swamps, and kick those monsters' asses. The boy declared, not noticing that Fu had a small smile on her face. I said I would do anything for a friend. I won't let him kill her, Naruto thought, a spark in his eyes he had to do. I gave you the chance to walk away, Fu-sama, but you decided that some runt that you only knew for a week is more important than your life. Sad, Mizuryou said as he held the water sword in front of the girl. Fu's head was spinning after she was thrown into a tree, but she managed to sit up using the tree to lean against and replied simply, he's my first friend, I would do anything for a friend. The man shook his head before quietly commenting, young love, taking his sword, he stood above her and stabbed. Fu's eyes closed, her body shaking in anticipation of the strike. A squish sound and the splat of something liquid on her face caused her to open her eyes. As soon as she did, she wished that she didn't. Naruto stood in front of her, his body was outstretched protectively, however, it was the bar of water jutting through his chest, inches away from her face that brought tears to her eyes. Guess that was a close shave, huh, Fu-chan? Naruto commented, blood dripping out of his mouth. You idiot, why did you do that? Fu shouted, tears running through her eyes. Naruto gave her a smile, and replied, because you are my friend. Stupid boy, you could have run away but instead you threw away your life, pathetic. Mizuryou responded quietly, pulling the sword from Naruto. The blonde dropped in a heap in front of Fu, who immediately wrapped the man up in a hug. Two monsters, dying in each other's hands, a fitting end for two demons, he commented as he raised his water sword. Once again, he brought his sword down in an attempt to strike them both down in one strike. However, years of training kicked in when Mizuryou immediately jumped out of the way, as a barrage of kunais smashed into the ground where he stood, in the trees, overlooking the area. The man that Fu bumped into was glaring at the Taki Nin. His eyes weren't a dark gray but now a crimson red with 3 black tomos, spinning furiously. What do we think we're doing? The man asked as he jumped to the ground and glared at the Taki Nin, who had a small smile on his face. Ah, Uchiha-sama, you want the final strike to yourself, as an honorable servant to the mighty Uchiha clan. I would be happy to oblige, Mizuryou told the Uchiha, giving a small bow. What the hell is this man talking about? Is the clan involved with this? It would make sense, there should have been patrol who would have investigated the commotion in the forest. It was only coincidence that I was walking by, the Uchiha thought as he eyed Mizuryou and then Naruto and Fu. Girl, the Mont's voice, shook Fu from her trance as she focused on her could-be savior. The Uchiha's face softened a bit and he spoke with an edge in his voice. Get that boy and leave, get him to the hospital, it is only a few blocks from here, I'll deal with this man. Fu couldn't do anything but nodded her head and picked Naruto up. Ignoring the fact that his blood was dripping on her, sparing the man a final glance, she ran away as fast she could. Fu ran down the streets of Konoha to find someone to help her. Naruto was still bleeding very badly, and the mint-haired Jinrikiriki knew that no matter how fast the blonde healed that he was going to die if he didn't get some help soon. Her first thoughts were to run to a hospital, but she couldn't for the life of her remember where the place was. Next came the Hokage Tower, but she realized that the tower was on the other side of the village and it might be too late to get Naruto there in time, especially if she avoids the main streets. However, Fu couldn't think of any other places to go and decided to run as fast as she could to get there. Launching herself at the door of the shop that she was working at, she practically kicked the door in, startling everyone inside. "Fu, what are you doing?" Juden asked before catching sight of Naruto on the girl's shoulder. What the hell happened to him? Higurashi ran from the back room, attracted by all the noise who was making all that. Her eyes fell on Naruto as she immediately picked the boy up from Fu's exhausted shoulders and placed him gently on the floor and studied the wound going through his body. What happened to him? She asked Fu, her tone lacking the playfulness that it usually possessed. After hearing the story of how Mizurio attacked them and Naruto taking a blow for Fu, Higurashi cursed quietly, "Damn brat, I didn't expect you to be sacrificing yourself this soon. You said that you were a great medic nin when you were younger, can you fix him?" The celadon-haired girl was almost fanatical. Juden had an almost sick look on his face. Soden had her hands over her face to keep from throwing up. "Hi." Higurashi went through a few hand signs before murmuring, "Shozen Jutsu, mystical palm technique." Her hands gained a greenish glow and she placed them on the side of the wound. For a few minutes, everyone was quiet. No one wanted to disturb Higurashi as she worked on Naruto. Finally, after a few minutes, the green glow died out and the former medic nin brought a hand to her face.
"It's a good thing that you brought him here when you did, Fu-chan," a small smile beginning to grow on her face. "If you didn't, the baka was going to die. Anyway, I should take him to the hospital. Would you like me to drop you off at your home, Fu-chan?"
The girl looked like a huge weight was released from her shoulders when she heard that Naruto was going to be fine. "I don't live here, Higurashi-san. However, my uncle is waiting for me in the Hokage Tower." The woman nodded and said, "Fine, just do me a favor, make sure that the Hokage knows that he'll be getting a visit from me in the nearby future for something I should have done a long time ago." Higurashi's brown eyes became as hard as steel, as she picked the boy up and prepared to go to the hospital. "So yeah, it's been a while, sorry about that. Anyway, this is the 5th chapter, please expect for the next chapter to come out sooner. Also expect some more updates. By the way, am I the only one who feels like Itachi killing of the Uchiha clan was just a little bit extreme? I mean, how many children were running around then? How many people who had no idea of the whole coup d'etat, forgive me if I spelled it wrong, were killed? Note to Mishin why put Sasuke in Tsukiyomi. I can understand the desire to give Sasuke an additional drive towards killing the man, but did Itachi think this shit through?" The sound of water dripping filled his ears as Naruto began to open his eyes. The image that came to him was that of a huge corridor with several pipes adorning the wall. The floor had water on it, but there were only a few thin puddles, almost like someone left the tap on and water was beginning to spill on the floor. The blonde quickly got up and fully examined where he was. The best word to describe where he was would be a sewer. "Now how the hell did I manage to get into a sewer?" he thought as he looked around. "Last thing I remember was jumping in front of Fu before that creep could kill her." His thoughts came to a screeching halt when Fu's name came to mind. "Oh Kami, is she alright? What did that bastard do to me? Did he throw me into the sewers after he was finished with me? Did he finish her off? One thing is for sure, I need to get out of here, and fast." Naruto looked around, tried to find an exit. Taking a guess, Naruto began to walk. After a few minutes of walking, the boy came upon a crossroad. There were 2 paths, and Naruto had no idea which way to go. However, a feeling told the blonde to go down the left corridor. After a few more minutes of walking, Naruto was considering turning around when he heard a voice, or rather an echo, from further down the hall. "Please come here, I need help," a faint voice called. Naruto's eyes widened. Fu-chan, is that you?" he called out. When the voice didn't reply, Naruto panicked and began to run as fast he could in the direction of the voice. From the sound of it, whoever it is, this person was in trouble, and if it was Fu, it doesn't look like she had much time. Naruto ran as fast he could until he reached what appeared to be a large gate to some kind of cage. It was larger than the Hokage monument and almost 3 times as wide. The inside of the cage was pitch black, but the soothing voice rang from the insides of the cage. "Please, help me, come here, come closer." The voice was louder, but it was still pretty hard to hear. "Don't worry, I am coming." Naruto ran to the door of the cage where he saw a small paper tag with the kanji for seal was hanging firmly to the G. The blonde took a quick glance at the paper tag, before venturing closer to the gate. "Yes, come closer to the gate, I don't want to be alone," the voice said, her sobs slowly beginning to die down. "Who are you? Where are we? How did you get into that cage? The boy asked. He ran towards the gate trying to alert to catch a glimpse of whoever is behind the gate. Inside the cage was nothing but darkness. But two crimson eyes peered out from the darkness followed by a large Cheshire smile. The figure began to make a low deep yipping noise that seemed like a sick mixture between a giggle and a bark. Naruto gave a surprised shout when a claw suddenly reached out from behind the gate. The boy was shocked and instinctively jumped back in fright. This action proved to save the blonde as the claw came just short of piercing his skull. I suppose it is a good thing you dodged that, boy. The creature said calmly, almost like it was talking about accidentally throwing a ball at someone rather than killing his host. Having an idiot for a host is only slightly better than having a brain-dead one. The lights of the sewer brightened and the monster that almost killed Naruto slowly came into view. The creature was in the image of a fox. Although its upper half looked vaguely humanoid, its eyes, red with bloodlust and cunning, gleamed like a star at the whimpering creature on the other side of the cage. There was a small moment of silence between the two figures before the monstrous fox spoke. Well, since you aren't going to talk, I suppose it's my turn to talk. As you can clearly see, unless you are more pathetic than I thought, I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the Biju told its host, a flash of pride running through its eyes. What's wrong, boy? Am I that impressive that I leave you speechless? The Kyuubi asked, something similar to a smirk running down his face. Naruto was still gaping about the fact that he was nearly killed by the monster that he had found out that was sealed inside him only shortly before. Again you forfeit your turn to speak, so I shall continue. I've been waiting a long time for this moment, boy. Some 7 years in fact, and to my happiness, you've discovered my existence inside your body. It was obvious even to Naruto in his fear-stricken mind that the fox was extremely sarcastic about the happiness part. My happiness about finally having a means to escape this dreary dump you call a mind and breathing fresh clean air once again. What do you mean by that? Naruto stuttered. The boy was slowly getting over his fear of the creature in front of him. When the Kyuubi's massive claw came down to strike him, he almost wedded himself over the idea that the fox could, and tried, to kill him. However, he could clearly see that the Kyuubi was trapped behind that gate with no way to harm him, so some of his confidence was returning. Since this is our first contact, I will explain it to you simply. In my millenniums of life, this was not the first time that I had been sealed into a human. Granted, this is the first time I ever been sealed into 3 human consecutively. The Kyuubi added this last part with overwhelming distaste and reminiscence, almost like recalling a particular bad memory. Give you a few guess on what that means. Anyway, I've made it my goal to make sure that the host doesn't die with me still contained in them. So what does that mean? Naruto asked, his tone hinting annoyance. The Kyuubi gave a small bark of laughter before responding. I, in my infinite generosity, decided to give you one of my abilities, one of the more nasty ones. The monster finished this statement with a deep barking laugh, while Naruto stared at the kitsune with a confused look. However, confusion slowly changed into anger as the boy began to get annoyed with the laughing figure in front of him. Oi, what are you laughing at? What do you mean give me one of your abilities? The boy asked in anger. The Kyuubi dropped down to eye level, to the point where Naruto could see his reflection in the beast's monstrous red eyes. You, Ninjin-chan, will be blessed with one of the powers that made the Kyuubi no Kitsune, a feared monstrosity to your people. This is to make sure that you don't die before the time is right. You should be grateful, Gaki. I've given you a means to protect yourself from those who want to hurt you. Grateful? It's your entire fault that the villagers hate me in the first place. If it wasn't for you I wouldn't even need protection. I probably would have been adopted. I would have had friends who like me and fight for me. So what makes you think that I would use anything that you give me, when everything that you ever did made my life hell? The blonde shouted at the Biju, anger flashing through his eyes, tears beginning to fall from his face. It doesn't matter whether you want to use it or not. Eventually you will have no choice but to use my power, and once you sample it, it will become like a drug and you will crave it. The Kyuubi gave a final evil grin before it began to glow red. The energy that was coming from the fox was foul. It leaked from the cage like and craped against the ground towards Naruto like a cloud of bloody smog. You will crave it, and like any addict you will want more. So much more that you will do anything for the taste. The cloud of demonic chakra grew taller and taller in front of cage, almost like a wall shielding the Kyuubi from sight. Naruto shivered at the sight but couldn't force himself away. When that day comes, you will come back. Till then, Uzumaki Naruto, accept my gift. The wall of dark red chakra reached the ceiling of the cage and then, like a tidal wave, came crashing down with the force of a small hurricane. Naruto was caught in the waves of what looked like blood and was pushed away from the cage and out of his mindscape. The Kyuubi no Kitsune stared at the space where Naruto once and gave an evil smile. It was still much early to give that boy my gift. It has severely weakened me to force that much energy through the seal with it as strong as it still is. I will need rest after this to regain my strength for when the boy comes back. With that thought, the most powerful Biju closed its eyes and began to enter slumber, patiently awaiting for his container to return and bring its freedom that much closer. I bid you farewell, Hokage-sama, and thank you for kindness over the situation. Shigeru took a very deep bow, his face conveying the fear, happiness, sadness, anger, and regret he had over the situation all at the same time. Once again, Takigakure is willing to make concessions to prevent the dissolution of any agreements. Sarutobi stared Shigeru directly in his eyes, his brown eyes searching through the soul of his counterpart from Getchiryu no Kuni, land of raging streams. The Hokage knew that he should be angry and that he should enact some kind of punishment for Takigakure, however he knew that the reason for said punishment wouldn't go through most people of the village. Despite the tragedy of one of Konoha's citizens being hurt, we see no reason to force Takigakure to suffer more than it already has because of this incident. The Hokage said with a solemn face, while he was angered that Naruto was hurt. The culprit was clearly acting alone, seeing as he was willing to kill his master's beloved niece to finish his mission and knew the secret of the Kyuubi. That added to the Fu's testimony of the incident implied heavily that there was a third party involved in this. A third party who had a stake in ruining Takigakure's or Konohagakure's reputation. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Thank you for your understanding our deep distress and regret over this incident. Fu and I wish to express our condolences over Naruto's condition and will pay for any medical expenditure, Shigeru told Sarutobi. Before leaving the room, the Hokage stood alone in the empty meeting room for a few minutes before calling Itachi to tell Itachi to arrive in his office within the next 2 hours. Rin Higurashi was standing by the side of her sensei's only legacy, her eyes looking at the blonde with a mixture of regret and relief. It was a few hours since the boy was admitted into the hospital, and his recovery has been described as nothing short of miraculous. Although she managed to stop the bleeding and heal his injury, it's been years since she actually applied her knowledge of medicine outside of healing a sore bruise or cut. The doctors did a checkup of the boy and concluded that the boy was already beginning to heal and only need help, much to Rin's happiness. It's good to see your first month back in Konoha was full of surprises, Rin-chan, a voice said from the door behind her. Rin turned around quickly, and her brown eyes met the aged eyes of the Sandaime Hokage. He walked in, closing the door behind him, and stood next to her facing Naruto. I assume the move into your family's old shop went smoothly. I heard that you managed to get Naruto and his little friend to help you. The old man spoke with a conversational tone, although his attention was thoroughly focused on the boy. Rin replied with the same tone of voice that she used around Naruto and her children earlier today. Yep, the two were pretty good workers, better than that lazy good-for-nothing son of mine, that's for sure. The Hokage chuckled. The discussion between the two moved away from the obvious issue and to a lighter one. So what do you plan for the boy, Hokage-sama? Rin asked. Her voice was serious. The Hokage's eyes appeared to be slightly downtrodden as he gave a deep sigh. The boy has suffered immense mental trauma. I never intend for the boy to learn of his burden. At least, not at this moment anyway. The Hokage trailed off, his soft brown eyes staring at Naruto. Rin was slightly annoyed that the man hadn't answered her question, but decided to ask another question that had been on her mind since he avoided the last one. Why didn't you tell Naruto about the Kyuubi before? Doesn't he have the right to know about why people treat him the way he does? Rin asked, her eyes demanding. From what I know about the seal that Minato used, the Biju can only make contact with their host only if the host is aware of them, the Hokage told the former Kunoichi. After seeing the look of confusion briefly pass through Rin's eyes, he elaborated, essentially, the seal takes the idea of out of sight, out of mind to a whole new level. As long as Naruto wasn't aware of the Kyuubi, then he didn't have to risk the monster affecting his mind at all. So that's why you made that law against informing him about the Kyuubi? Rin questioned. The Hokage gave a small smile and nodded. Many thought that the law was for Naruto to have a normal childhood. And in truth that was only part of the reason. Its main purpose was to prevent his tenant from having any influence on the boy. If a Jinrikiriki is aware of its inmate, then the Biju can affect both the mind and the body of the container. Since Naruto had the Kyuubi since birth, he was only subconsciously aware of the beast. The best influence the Kyuubi could have on him was passive at best, such as slightly faster recovery for injuries, and higher chakra than normal. The typical advantages that all Jinrikiriki possesses with no negative effect on his mind, except for a few fox-like qualities, the Sandaime explained. However, now the beast can exert influence on the boy himself, even runs the possibility of possessing the boy if he was to draw upon the Kyuubi's chakra. Rin's eyes widened. She admitted this was a very valid reason not to allow the boy to know that the beast was inside of him. However, that didn't excuse other things that the man did to the boy. In that case then, why alert the village of the Naruto's status as the container? If no one knew, then the chances of someone accidentally slipping him the secret would be nil and the boy could have that normal childhood he deserves. The Hokage took a drag from his pipe and said remorsefully. Sadly, it wouldn't have mattered. Many Anbu and ninja were on the scene when the Kyuubi was sealed into the boy. We all saw how the sacrifice both Kushina and Minato made. The news would have spread due to the drunken haze that affected most of the shinobi after the attack. After all, adrenaline was high and tension was at a fever pitch. We all need some relief before we began mourning the dead, and if I am not wrong, you yourself were caught mingling with a certain shinobi that night. The Hokage's eyes changed from reminiscent look to a slightly perverted gleam, as Rin's face blushed slightly. The point is that those people were probably going to blurt out the information anyway. Not only that, people would begin to wonder about the true death of the fox. I felt that it would have been better if the people were to know the truth, than for rumors to spread. My enforcement of the law was very strict however. Anyone who told someone from the post-Kyuubi attack generation about the Kyuubi was dealt with accordingly. Why didn't you just tell the village that he was Minato-sensei's son? That surely would have treated the boy like the hero he was supposed to be. There wouldn't have been any need for that law, Rin asked angrily. This was one thing about Naruto's situation that always bothered her even when she left Konoha. You know, I find it rather interesting to hear that from you, Rin Higurashi, the Hokage replied coolly, causing Rin to flinch. I tend to remember both you and Kakashi's reactions to your late sensei's son. He drowned himself into work, not even bothering to check on the son of whom he claimed was a father figure, and you left the village to become a merchant, because you told me that you just couldn't handle the stress anymore. Kushina was forced to leave her home, become the second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, deal with the destruction of her original home and clan, and lost both of her original teammates. Yet was strong enough to take you under her wing at your time of need. You abandoned her son when he was forced into the horrors of being a human sacrifice, a life of distrust, hatred and violence. How do you think your sensei or Kushina would react to you and Kakashi's betrayal? Rin had the decency to look ashamed. It was true that she left the village simply to escape from reality of her sensei's and his wife's death. Both, especially Kushina, were there for her during the deaths of her parents, the falling out she had with her brother, and the death of Obito. A few tears involuntarily fell out of her eyes as she turned away from the Hokage to hide her shame. Sarutobi noticed the saddened expression on her face and his voice softened a bit. The villagers were willing to ignore Minato's final wish because they were in pain and they were suffering. Do you honestly believe that if we were going to treat the boy any different, if anything, they would use it as justification to harm the boy by claiming that the demon possesses the body of the Yondaimi's son or believing that it was an attempt to stop any harm from the boy? The people were set in their beliefs the moment I announced the result of the Kyuubi attack. Naruto's going to have to be the one that changes their beliefs. His heritage won't help him. Sarutobi gave a deep sigh and ran a hand through paper-thin hair as he walked over to the window on the far side of the room. Rin whipped the tears from her face and followed the Hokage to the window her eyes took in the sight. Naruto's room had a picturesque view of the entire village. The Hokage monument and all the individual buildings of the village stood slyly under the moonlight. Rin's trained eye could track a few ninja running across rooftops, either returning from a mission or simply patrolling the village. Some drunken villagers could be seen walking around struggling to stumble into their homes. Do you think that Minato-sensei would have sacrificed himself if he would have known that this would have happened? Sarutobi gave another deep sigh at Rin's question. His eyes scanned the village that he was born and raised in, and if fate will have it, die in. I don't know Rin-chan. Only time will tell if Minato took the right action. Takigakure was a rather small hidden village, with a ninja population of a little under 1,000. As the leader of a small shinobi village, Shigeru knew almost every ninja that wore a Takigakure headband much better than the cages of larger villages knew their shinobi. Therefore, when Fu told him of the attack that one of his elite guards, who were actually a good friend of his, attacked both his niece and the surrogate grandson of the Hokage, he knew something was entirely wrong with the situation. Fu-chan, he told his niece. The girl had been quiet during their entire walk home, not saying a word to Shigeru. Her orange eyes stared at the ground. I know that you were scared when you saw Mizurio attack Naruto. Please don't let your mind continue to dwell on that moment. It's over and I want you to know that he has been taken care of. Naruto has arrived at the hospital and is in good condition thanks to you. Seeing that Fu wasn't responding to him, he gave a small sigh and sent the small girl to bed, as soon as he was sure that she was asleep. Shigeru's anger collided across the room. While Shigeru wasn't an official Kage, he did possess the strength of one or at least a high Jonin in terms of power. He quickly appeared across the room in front of one of his guards. Senji, you were with Mizurio the longest during this trip. Now answer me honestly, did you have any idea of what he was planning? Shigeru's voice lacked a tone. In fact, the best way to describe it was analytical, like he was attempting to solve a puzzle. Senji jumped in panic and gave his lord his standing attention. No sir, Jonin Mizurio showed no sign of false play, nor did he meet with any clients during his time here in Konoha, sir. Interesting, and I have know for a fact that Mizurio couldn't have talked with a client while we were in Takigakure, or on the trip here. That means one of two things. Both of these involve genjutsu, Shigeru thought as he studied Senji, in case his guard was lying to him. After not detecting a lie, Shigeru gave the order for his men to rest for tonight. He had some thinking to do.
The Hokage was sitting at his desk calmly smoking from his pipe when he detected a familiar chakra signature shining into his office. He calmly watches as a ninja dressed in full Anbu attire materialized in front of him. The man crouched down and stood waiting for the Hokage to acknowledge him.
Weasel-san, please tell me the events of what happened earlier today, the Hokage said rather calmly. The ninja in front of him gave a nod, stood and began to speak. Sir, at the time I was off duty when a young girl with green hair ran into me. She was panicking and I offered to go into the forest to search for the boy. I went out into the forest to search for the boy and was having difficulty finding him. Naruto, as you know, hasn't had his chakra unlocked, and due to the boy focusing on hiding from the enemy ninja, he unconsciously lowered his chakra, making finding him difficult. The Hokage nodded. When the boy occasionally pulled pranks or was running from irate villagers and ninja, he had a talent for hiding himself. Eventually, I was able to pick up on their location when the Taki Nin used a jutsu, but I was too late to stop the boy from being injured and told the girl to take him away from the battleground. Afterwards, I was able to dispatch the enemy, but not before he said something that caught my attention. Weasel paused to take a short breath and ask for permission to continue onwards. After seeing the Hokage nodded his approval to continue. He spoke again. The ninja by the name of Mizurio called me Uchiha-sama, and seemed to be implied that my clan had something to do with the attack. At the same time, the large commotion that was going through, and there should have been some kind of patrol of the Konoha police going by the woods. Instead there was a large absence of any ninja anywhere near the area, and after closer examination of Mizurio's body, I discovered that there was an almost unnoticeable genjutsu on the man. I only noticed it because of my Sharingan and my familiarity with the foreign chakra that induced the genjutsu. So that means the Uchiha clan had something to do with this. Sarutobi sighed. His hands reached into his desk and pulled out his trusty pipe. After putting a bit of tobacco into it, he turned to the Anbu officer and asked, I assume that you know the one who casted the genjutsu, correct? Hi, I can almost guarantee that it was Shisui Uchiha who casted the genjutsu, under the direct order of Fugaku Uchiha, if I might add. I was afraid of this. It appears that the Uchiha are beginning to make their move, far sooner than I thought they would. Tell me, Weasel-san, have the Uchiha discussed with you any plans or timetables for their coup d'etat? The Sandame asked. Hokage-sama, I can confirm that the main family of the Uchiha are almost unanimous in their support of a village takeover. However, the outcast family are harder to get a true idea on. They support the idea that the Uchiha clan should be treated like second-class citizens and deserve the respect that all clans possess, but shows little support at the aspect of seizing control of the village and are generally against the main family of the Uchiha. I can't, however, give you a timetable for when the clan plans on conquering the village. The only thing I know for sure is that they will attempt the plan in the coming year. The Hokage said nothing for a moment as he finally lit his pipe and took a drag from it. After a few moments, the Anbu in front of him and said quietly, if the village was to make concessions to the Uchiha, would they be willing to call off their takeover? The weasel-masked ninja thought for a moment before responding. The outcasts would be willing to accept the concessions, but the Madara's line has already marked its course for total conquest. Even if the outcast chose not to participate in the coup d'etat, they would be forced to choose sides and would more than likely support the Uchiha due to the connection of family and the threats of the main family. The Sandame took another drag of his pipe and bored his eyes through the porcelain mask and into the eyes of the ninja in front of him. Very well then, I am sorry, Weasel-san. It appears Operation Dying Embers must be launched. The shinobi showed no signs of reacting to the news. His posterior remained stiff and upright, ready to act at any moment. With a perfectly monotone voice he responds to his leader, yes, Hokage-sama, it will be done. With those words, the Sandame Hokage dismissed the Anbu. The moonlight from the window casted a long shadow against the aged man as he continued to smoke his pipe. Naruto's eyes began to flicker, and slowly his bright blue eyes began to adjust to the light of the hospital room. The boy started to sit up but was stopped when a sharp pain ran throughout his body. The blonde looked down to see that his chest was covered in bandages. Confusion ran across his face before it was replaced with the memory of him being stabbed protecting Fu. I got to the hospital, that means someone must have saved me. Was it Fu-chan? The blonde thought before he gave a second attempt to sit up. He was surprised to feel no pain when he attempted it a second time and decided to get up and walk. However, it was a familiar voice that stopped him in his tracks. Glad to see you up. Naruto-kun, you gave us all a scare for a while. Naruto's face turned towards the door and saw the Sandame Hokage with a grandfatherly smile on his face. However, to the Sandame's surprise, Naruto didn't greet him with a smile of his own but a neutral face. His head was looking down with his hair covering his face, so that the Sarutobi couldn't see his eyes. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? He tried to get closer to the boy and lay a comforting hand on his shoulder, but the boy shrugged it off. Why, you lied to me, Hokage Oji-san, Naruto said in a quiet voice. The Hokage's eyes widened at the tone of the boy's voice. Unlike the normal high-pitched, sunny, happy tone of voice the blonde usually had, it was empty of any warmth. It was almost like the sun was being covered by clouds. Naruto, I want you to know that what that man said to you before doesn't change anything, that you still are Naruto Uzumaki, not the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I know that, but why did you lie to me all those times when you told me that you didn't know why people didn't like me? You knew why everyone keeps glaring at me. You knew why everyone keeps trying to hurt me. How'd I know that you weren't lying to me about other things? The Hokage flinched at his words and the boy's suspicious tone. Naruto, I want you to know that I wasn't trying to hurt you. Sarutobi started before Naruto responded angrily, but I did get hurt.
I remember getting hurt when they attacked me. I was hurt when those villagers were pulling those kids away from me. Naruto showed him his eyes. His bright sky blue orbs were filled to the brim with tears. I was hurt that everyone knew why people hated me, that the person I want to be like lied to me. So tell me, what else are you lying to me about? This last part was almost a scream. Tears were running down his face as he glared at the old man who seemed to age even more.
For a second, Sarutobi debated about telling Naruto his family, about his father and mother, but decided against it. Even if Naruto hated him, he couldn't risk the boy's family name coming out. He also couldn't risk the idea of Naruto developing a hatred for the fourth Hokage, or a hatred for the village. Naruto, there is nothing else that I am hiding from. I promise on my word as the Hokage that is the only thing I kept from you. The blonde looked into the eyes of the Hokage, attempting to read him. However, Sarutobi has had over 50+ years in telling bold-faced lies and open-handed deception. A 7-year-old couldn't possibly read him. The boy was no exception when he gave a small nod, his eyes turning away from the Hokage, looking out the window. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was quiet again, although a bit shaky. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to burden you at such a young age with such a great burden, the Hokage started, sitting on the bed next to the boy. I wanted you to have a normal childhood, grow up and make friends. I wanted you to be seen as a hero for containing the Kyuubi and keeping it from hurting anyone else. Sadly, the village didn't see it my way. However, Naruto, one day they will view you as a hero, someone to admire and respect. Seeing that the boy wasn't responding, the Hokage sighed. I just want you to know, Naruto, that you aren't the Kyuubi and that there are people who care about you no matter what. Naruto didn't respond as he continued to look out the window.
His face blank of emotions. By the way, Naruto, Fu-chan has been very worried about you. I'll tell her that you have woken up and that you will be able to visit her tomorrow before she goes. She quite determined to talk to you, Naruto. In fact, if I didn't know any better, I figured something happened yesterday. Naruto spluttered for a moment, causing the Sandame laugh at the boy and his almost cute attempt at a glare. It looks like the boy would get over the trauma in due time.
After the Hokage left, Naruto was forced to stay at the hospital for another day to properly heal and to treat any prevailing injuries. The doctors and nurses treated the boy like he was a normal patient, although there were a few complaints when they thought the boy was out of earshot. Regardless, the boy was released the next day and was now in front of the village gates with the Hokage and the Taki Nin. Shigeru was wearing the same outfit that he had arrived in Konoha in, his conical hat covering his eyes as he walked over to the blonde and bent down. The man gave the boy a wry smile and said, "Thank you, Naruto-kun, for showing Fu-chan a good time while we were here. I also want to thank you for protecting Fu-chan. In fact, isn't there something you want to tell him, Fu-chan?" The celadon-haired girl walked up and approached Naruto. Her face was entirely neutral. Before Naruto could, the girl punched him directly in the face. "What the hell is your problem? Is this how you talk to people who save your life, Marimo?" The blonde shouted, holding his nose. "What the hell is the matter with you? Why did you jump in front of me? I could have saved myself. You almost got yourself killed, Hige Baka." Naruto paused for a split moment. He was surprised that someone actually cared enough to be concerned, although he wasn't going to allow someone, especially someone he saved, to yell at him. "The only reason I tried to save you was because I didn't want my friend to be killed in front of me. Marimo Mushi." Fu was also taken back, but quickly responded with an insult of her own. The insults would have continued to fly if the Hokage hadn't instantly diffused the situation by saying, "Ah, young love, HMMH, Shigeru-san? Yes, you can tell that they love each other through their quarreling. Maybe we should make a marriage contract between the two." The man punctuated this statement with a hand on his chin, giving off a thoughtful look, causing the two Jinchuriki to blush. "Ignoring the two lovebugs here, may you have a safe journey back to Tokigakure, Shigeru-san. The arrangements of our agreement will be provided by my own elite ninja in the near future," the Hokage told the still giggling man, who nodded. "Thank you, Hokage-sama, for your hospitality and for your kindness. I promise that as long as I live, Tokigakure will be Konoha's ally, and as for you, Naruto-kun, thank you." The man turned to the blonde and gave a deep bow. "Without you, Fu-chan would have died, and I would have lost the last piece of my brother I have left. Thank you." Arigato, Shigeru-san," Naruto said sheepishly, his hand instinctively going to the back of his head as a smile grew on his face. A similar smile formed on Shigeru's face as he turned around. You'll be a great man on day, Naruto-kun. I wish you and Konoha good fortunes. Shigeru gave a final bow before turning around and leaving the village. His guards were following behind him closely. Naruto was then surprised when he felt something wrap around him and something soft and warm touch his cheeks. Fu pulled back and turned away, hiding her blush. Thanks. Naruto-kun. I hope we see each other again one day, she murmured before running to catch up with her uncle and the guards. Naruto stood there in shock, a bright pink flush running along his face, as he watched Fu and company pull away into the distance. The Hokage gave a chuckle as he watched the shell-shocked blonde stare blankly in the direction of the Taki Nin. He turned around and began to walk away, but not before giving a subtle gesture. Looks like this is my chance. Wow, only 7 years old, and already stealing kisses. I might have to keep Soden away from you. Naruto turned around to see Higurashi walking towards him with a smile on her face. She was wearing a green bandana over her long brown hair. She was wearing a tan long-sleeved shirt with brown pants. Higurashi-san. What are you doing here? The blonde asked the approaching woman. Well, I heard that your little girlfriend was about to leave the village and I wanted to say goodbye. Looks like I came a bit too late for that, unfortunately, she said as she looked out towards the distance. I also wanted to have a few words with you, Hige-kun. She got closer to the blonde, who backed away, causing her smile to dim a bit. Naruto gained a confused look and asked the brunette, what do you mean, Higurashi-san? The memory of the attack was still fresh in his mind, and the knowledge of why people hated him didn't make him feel any more comfortable around people. However, the woman had defended him against the genin who were giving Fu and him a hard time, and from what he heard, healed him when he was injured. Remember the shop that you and your girlfriend were helping me work on? Well, there is something that I want to show you, Higurashi said calmly. Her tone remained motherly and soothing, attempting to dissuade any negative thoughts. Naruto thought for a moment before saying, fine, let's go. Wait, no, she's not my girlfriend. The blonde had to admit that in a few days, Higurashi's shop changed from its worn-out state to an actual shop. Although it didn't look like any shop that Naruto had seen before, there were several racks to the far corner of the shop with several varieties of clothes on them. Aisles had a large assortment of weapons from kunai to katanas, any weapon in between. Behind the counter, Soden was reading a book. Welcome to our store, please don't steal anything, she drawled, not even bothering to lift her face from the book. Soden, that's not how you greet guests. And where is your brother? He was supposed to be sweeping up the store. Ni-san, left with Tenten-chan to go train with staffs again. He told me not to tell you, the brown-haired girl answered, turning the page of her book nonchalantly, oblivious to her mother's growing anger. The nerve of these children, they both are turning out like those damn teammates of mine, Higurashi muttered under her breath. Anyway, what do you think of the store, Hige-kun? Wow, this store looks so much different than before. Where did all this stuff come from? Naruto asked Higurashi, who puffed up in pride. Due to my superior skills as a merchant over the last few years, I was able to gain vital contacts over the land. With this, I was able to get clothes and foreign goods from all over the elemental nations. As you know, I was a medic nin. So I am able to produce medical goods and provided it cheaper than my competition. Finally, my brother, Kane, Rin means bell, so does Kane, is a blacksmith and provides me some of his wares to sell. That combined with my family's old store means that I have the world's first all-purpose one-stop shop ninja mart. I just wanted to know where the stuff came from, Naruto said quietly, causing Higurashi to deflate and getting a giggle from Soden. Damn brats, I try to be a nice person, allow Hige-gaki to get shinobi supplies from here for free, yet a brat has to say something like that. Higurashi muttered angrily, yet loud enough for the blonde to hear him. After seeing Naruto's surprised look, Higurashi gained a smug look. What? I don't see the point of owning a one-stop shop for cheap ninja equipment, clothing, and medicine and not taking advantage of it, don't you think? Higurashi grinned, as Naruto looked around the store. So I can get anything I want from here? Naruto asked, his eyes wide with the option of buying whatever you wanted for academy. Huh, no. Higurashi grinned at Naruto's shocked expression. You can get anything you want within reason, and I expect you to work here every weekend. She studied Naruto's shocked expression and decided that now was the chance to give the news and see how he'd react. Hey, brat, don't look at me like that. I'll be giving you free room and board from now on. That is the very least you could do for me. The blonde adapted a confused look and asked, what do you mean free room and board? Higurashi gave a big smile and replied, well, the Hokage-sama felt that you shouldn't be living along anymore with someone that would treat you right. After finding out about your burden, and since I am such a nice person, I decided to adopt you. Naruto was at a loss for words, and all he could mutter was what? Yeah. I decide that you shouldn't be living by yourself at your age, and since you still technically an orphan and a ward of the state, The Hokage can allow you to join my little family if you wish. Higurashi said this without her more upbeat tone and with a more subtle, almost motherly tone. But why would you want to be with me? You know what I have in me, don't you? The blonde's voice was beginning to rise as his emotions were bubbling to the surface. He almost didn't want to believe her, especially after what he learned not only 2 days ago. Higurashi heard the sound of the backroom door shutting after Naruto's outburst and gave a small sigh. She couldn't help but be happy that her daughter at least possessed enough tact to leave the room when a sensitive situation came up. Her brother would have only gotten in the middle of the situation. Naruto, what makes you think that would stop me from wanting you? That is why everyone hates me and treats me like a monster. What makes you think I am going to believe you? Huh? Naruto's eyes glared into Higurashi, daring her. Rin knew that she had to be careful how she worded her statement, otherwise Naruto would storm out with more hatred than ever. Naruto, when you were injured, Fu had brought you here and begged me to heal you. At that moment, I had your life in my hands, and if I wanted to, I could have just let you die or made your injuries even worse. Instead, I healed to the best conditions I could. When you were on the counter bleeding, I didn't see a demon or a monster. All I saw was an injured boy. I heard about the way you lived and how people treated you. I believe that no one should have to go through that kind of thing. She drew closer to Naruto, who was beginning to sob, and said quietly, besides, I said that you and I are friends. I didn't just say that to make you do free work. I did mean it. There was a moment of silence as Naruto dealt with the feelings that were dwelling in his chest. He honestly didn't know how to react or what to say to Higurashi. Will I have to change my name to Higurashi? Naruto mumbled, forcing tears not to rise in his eyes. No, you spent your entire life as Naruto Uzumaki. I won't force you to become Naruto Higurashi if you don't want to be. The woman said with a kind smile. Naruto forced tears to stop from forming in his eyes. It was always the dream of every orphan to be adopted, to be accepted into some kind of family. He sobbed silently as he felt warm arms slowly but softly envelope him into a gentle hug. He attempted to fight it for a second but gave in to the warmth. Higurashi kept a small smile on her face as she embraced the blonde. She will make sure that she lives up to her sensei and her role model's expectation and raise Naruto like one of her own children. Thanks for watch.